Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Flames and black lightning coalesced around his fist, mercilessly striking the Holy Grail. This took only a fleeting 3 seconds, but for a servant, even for a pseudo-servant like him, 3 seconds was more than enough time to accomplish a lot. This included breaking Garrett Sugu's spine with his right hand in the first second, followed by using his left fist to gather magical energy and bombarding the Holy Grail. Boom! The deafening sound echoed in their ears. Terrifying magical energy exploded on the surface of the Holy Grail as a result of Roy's punch. No. In despair, Garrett Sugu stared intently at the rising dust, his eyes wide with disbelief. In his view, Roy's punch had not merely destroyed the Holy Grail, but everything he possessed, obliterating all his efforts and dreams up to that point. But is that really the case? As dust rose and horrific magical energy erupted around the Holy Grail, the explosion shook the entire underground chamber. What is this? But in the center of the dust, only Roy could see what was reflected. Buzz buzz buzz. Just as Garrett Sugu had lost all hope, a faint yet eerie sound began to resonate in the area. The strange noise was not the sound of the Holy Grail shattering, it wasn't even a sound that should occur in nature, but rather a ringing in the ears accompanying the unbearable pressure. Blood flowed from his nostrils, eye sockets, and eardrums. His whole body trembled. Indeed, it's not that simple. Facing the pressure directly, Roy furrowed his brow. An unseen force suddenly weighed heavily upon him, causing his body to drop several centimeters in an instant. His feet felt as if they were nailed to the ground, his speed significantly reduced. Even though I was psychologically prepared, Amakusashiru, your current appearance truly leaves me at a loss for words. Indeed, it was often at the last moment that one faced a true test. Roy clicked his tongue, not daring to linger, and quickly adjusted his posture to retreat rapidly, putting as much distance as possible between himself and the pure white monster that had descended here. What on earth is this? Like Roy, Garrett Sugu's body was also subjected to this inexplicable pressure, forcing him down to the ground. He gazed in disbelief at the white shadow hovering in midair. Buzz buzz buzz. The incomprehensible vibrations were like sacred chants with a unique frequency. Blinding light descended from the air, illuminating their skin and lighting up Garrett Sugu and Roy's faces. After a moment of bewilderment, they were overtaken by an intense discomfort, clearly feeling their souls being forcibly transformed by that strange power. Humphrey, you want to directly modify my soul? Roy glanced at the gigantic shadow suspended in midair, snorted coldly, and swung the black flames toward the light, retreating swiftly to avoid the illuminated area. Meanwhile, the boy priest, who had descended along with the shattering of the Holy Grail, had transformed from something humanoid into something merely cloaked in human skin. An angel. A sacred yet terrifying existence. In the eyes of Garrett Sugu and Roy, to Magus, this term might not represent much. If viewed through the eyes of a well-versed and devout believer, it would be a manifestation of a miracle. The angel, the tendril of divine power, the servant of the Almighty Lord in Christianity. Angels possess wisdom and abilities far beyond those of humans. They descend when humanity needs them, conveying divine messages and wisdom. But this is only when humanity and the world require it. If not needed, they merely serve as vessels of divine power, massive containers that do nothing. Is it possible that Amakusashiru had used the Holy Grail's magical energy to pull the angel sleeping on the reverse side of the world down to this world? No, that's not correct, because even if the true Greater Grail could indeed summon the angels slumbering in the reverse side of the world to the present world, angels would never obey the commands of anyone but the Lord. They are simply vessels of divine power, and they will always adhere to divine will. If it truly is an angel, then it will do nothing but strive to find a way to return to the reverse side of the world. So this angelic state seems somewhat off. One could say that the angel itself is very wrong. Without time to consider this anomaly, Roy hurriedly dove into the ventilation duct, quickly escaping from in front of this angel, while Garrett Sugu, unable to move, stared wide-eyed at the divine presence before him, murmuring, "This is a god." The white light soon enveloped him. In another direction, Saber and Lancer had already stopped fighting. Both had someone they cared about in this city, and each had their own reasons to battle. This should have been a nightly conflict of conviction, fighting to the death until a victor emerged. At the last moment of their fierce battle, as they were about to use their strongest noble phantasms to determine the outcome, an unimaginable sight appeared before them. The ground cracked, the cement and asphalt beneath their feet crumbling like broken cookies. From the vast fissures and hollows, an immense light suddenly burst forth. The source of the light was not far from them, and the cracks in the ground continued to spread, with blinding white light erupting from below, accompanied by a sense of danger that enveloped the hearts of the two knights. What on earth is that? What is happening down there? With a thunderous cracking sound, a colossal object finally surged up from the ground, soaring into the air at high speed before their astonished eyes. The light converged into a point, gradually extending into something resembling wings, yet also appearing like tentacles. An eerie spectacle. They spread high into the sky, their shapes completely irregular, spiraling and extending from dozens of feet to several feet. The dazzling white light instantly illuminated the entire night sky of Fuiuki City. A miracle, an absolute miracle. This sight was akin to the arrival of angels as described in the Bible. The angel that had suddenly appeared brought not only shock in appearance but also contained terrifying power within its countless extended wings. Just a touch could easily tear apart the ground and buildings as if they were paper. The feeble structures built by humanity were tossed aside like toys in their wake. If the physical impact alone wasn't enough to cause such a grim expression on Saber and Lancer, then what could they say about the immense size and the overwhelming presence of this being? Not to mention, the surge of magical energy that was rising continuously. Was this for real? What kind of monster was this? With a slight flutter of its wings, the surge of magical energy increased the ether concentration of the surrounding land to a whole new level, even hinting at a trend of returning to the Age of Gods. Under their incredulous gaze, this angel, bearing countless wings of light, suddenly fell from the sky. To them, it seemed as though the sun was plummeting. Run. Boom. The city trembled. On the other side, after the wings of light unfolded, the angel began to reshape the entire city of Fuiuki, using its body as the starting point. Everything covered by the wings would undergo transformation by the angel's core, which is the third magic. What on earth is this thing? An angel? Kenneth, who had just been dug out of the ruins of the gymnasium by Roy, widened his eyes as if he had seen something unbelievable. In response to his question, Roy nodded slightly. Damn it, what is happening? How can such an existence appear in this era? An entity of the status of an angel would be considered a divine spirit even in the Age of Gods. Having already been in a terrible state from his self-destruct attack, Kenneth's brain was now trembling even more. As he felt the ether concentration around him rising continuously, his gaze became more horrified, and even goosebumps stood on end. The third magic, angels, and this magical power. This guy intends to use Fuiuki City as a starting point to connect the ley lines of the entire Japan, planning to transform all of humanity in one go. Damn it, how are we supposed to deal with a monster of this magnitude and magical power? We actually have to take down a divine spirit reappearing in modern times. Thinking of this possibility, Kenneth held his breath. The more advanced one's mastery of magecraft, the deeper the fear of the creations from the Age of Gods. Even in the face of high-level phantasmal species, Magus can feel powerless and terrified. Now, facing a creation that touched the realm of the gods, Kenneth was even more troubled. We actually have to face an enemy of the angel level. Let's retreat. An enemy of this size is simply beyond our capability to handle. To defeat this thing, we would need the power of the entire world. We should contact the Holy Church. They caused this trouble with their own god, so they should deal with it. No, it's too early to give up now, Professor Kenneth. What do you mean? Roy's words were hard for Kenneth to understand. There isn't enough time. This monster won't give the world a chance to retaliate. Before enough combat strength can be gathered from around the world, it will begin the transformation. If we contact them now, there won't be enough time. I know that, but what can we do now? You don't really think we can eliminate a miracle from the Age of Gods by ourselves, do you? We can, we still have a chance. What did you say? Professor Kenneth, please observe this monster carefully. Don't use your eyes, only use magical perception. Although its appearance is incredibly close to that of an angel, both in its composition and existence, the essence of this monster is not a true angel at all. Kenneth was momentarily stunned, then he looked in the direction Roy pointed. You mean? Yes, this white angel does not exist in any mythological texts, not even in fragments of records. This angel should not exist at all. It is merely a monster born from the soul of a Magus, the martyr, combined with the magical power of the Holy Grail. Compared to a true angel that bears divine power, it has no divinity or authority. It's merely a form of the Holy Grail fulfilling Magus Shiru's wish, because that sorrowful saint believed until his last moment that God would redeem the world, thus giving birth to a false angel to complete the so-called redemption for him. While its specifications are still powerful, it is not invincible, so you still have a chance. From the high tower, Kisser Zelrech Schwenorg looked down at the angel connecting the ley lines and smiled. The key to victory has already been handed over to you, so don't let me down. Elmel Oy Foreigner. In the city. As Artoria, working with Fian, was delaying the false angel, she was suddenly struck and sent flying by countless wings of light. Saber. Are you okay? Seeing her being knocked away, Fian hurried to Artoria's side. I'm fine. Artoria forced herself to stand and replied, but my contract with Garrett Sugu has just been interrupted. It seems that Garrett Sugu has died. I'm sorry, Lancer. I might not be able to continue dealing with this monster disguised as an angel. Artoria appeared to be on the verge of collapsing. I see. Fian glanced at the false angel that was still absorbing the magical energy from the ley lines. Although he wanted to play it cool and say something like, leave it to me. He knew that facing such an opponent alone was impossible. Even with Saber's cooperation, they could only barely defend themselves. If he rushed in alone, he would be crushed into the concrete in just a few rounds. He had killed beings like this before and understood the nature of such beings. But what exactly was this thing? It had the appearance of an angel but lacked divinity and authority. However, the endless magical power flowing within it and its terrifying regenerative abilities were incredibly troublesome. It seemed to possess no intelligence, merely wielding countless light wings and unleashing an endless stream of magical energy to suppress everything within its reach. No matter what kind of attacks he and Saber inflicted upon its body, it could instantly recover. If one tentacle was severed, more would grow in its place. If its body was cut, new wings would sprout from the wounds. An endless cycle that could never be finished. This creature was adapting to their attacks and evolving. This can't go on. Fiant sucked on his fingers, realizing the dire situation. But in this case, they could only fight with everything they had. Leave it to me, King of Knights. I will make a desperate stand against it. Seeing Artoria, who had lost her magical supply and was about to be unable to fight any longer, Fiant gripped his jeweled spear tightly, ready to unleash his noble phantasm for a final battle against his terrifying false angel. Awaken, my spear. Humphrey. Is this situation making you helpless? With a cold snort, a series of piercing sounds followed. Neither god nor human, this abominable and hypocritical monster has truly displeased me. So let it pay with its death. Whoosh! With a dazzling golden light, continuous explosions erupted on the false angel's body. A mass of golden particles suddenly gathered on a street lamp, and the King of Heroes Gilgamesh, clad in brilliant golden armor, made a shining entrance once again. Looking at the approaching angel, his eyes were filled with undisguised disgust. Amid the ongoing explosions, the massive angel let out a thunderous roar but emerged unharmed. Gilgamesh's attacks did not hinder its advance. Truly impressive, to have created such a monster. Neither human nor god, yet possessing undeniable power. The third magic, huh? So this is it. You are Archer. You've come as well? Fian looked at Gilgamesh, whom he had just seen as an enemy not long ago, with surprise. Are you here to deal with the angel too? An angel? This absurd creature can hardly be called an angel, at most, it's just a self-governing absurd puppet. Gilgamesh glanced at the enormous figure of the false angel before turning his gaze to the weakened saber below. I responded to this summoning because I sensed the presence of the holy sword wielder I know and wanted to settle the score in this holy grail war. I didn't expect to encounter such a counterfeit, it truly displeases me. The holy sword wielder, the apocalyptic entity, has appeared. You're not planning to retreat shamefully, are you? No need for you to say it. I can still fight. Upon hearing this, Artoria gritted her teeth and gathered her spirit, barely managing to stand up to launch an attack with her last strength. Humphrey, you still have some spirit. You haven't disappointed me too much. However, this enemy is indeed beyond what you can handle. Let me take care of this false god myself. King of Heroes, your words imply that you're also here to stop the angel, right? Then we can consider ourselves temporary allies. Fiant stepped forward to clarify Gilgamesh's stance. Temporary allies? At these words, Gilgamesh's brows twitched, and a hint of anger crossed his face. Humphrey. Who do you think you are to call yourself an ally? Don't get too cocky. Mongrel. The only one who can be considered my ally, now or in the future, is one person only. You are hardly worthy of being compared to him. Were it not for the current situation, I would have torn you apart. No need to be so agitated, King of Heroes. If my earlier words have offended you, I am willing to apologize. However, please take the matter seriously, Now is not the time for us to waste each other's energy. I agree with Lancer's proposal on this point. Watching the two golden-haired knights standing together below, Gilgamesh fell silent. Don't celebrate too early. Your rudeness and overstepping will be dealt with later. For now, just do your part well. Great. It seems everyone is here. At that moment, another voice came from not far away. Roy jumped down from a height, carrying Kenneth, and politely greeted the three servants gathered here. Saber, Lancer, it's so nice to see you again here. And, of course, this powerful archer. Roy smiled upon seeing Gilgamesh also present. Indeed, we finally meet, foreigner. Gilgamesh cast a glance at him. Chapter 55, 55 Side by Side. Sorry, King of Heroes. Although I would love to continue admiring your glory, there are more important matters waiting for you to attend to. Understanding the other's temperament, Roy decided to play along. He gave a slight bow towards Gilgamesh, who was perched on the street lamp, speaking in a tone that was plain yet respectful. It seems you're quite perceptive, kid. However, recognizing the brilliance of this king is something you've done well. The compliment, though not overly flattering, pleased Gilgamesh. At this moment, he was too lazy to nitpick and descended graciously in front of Roy. The Golden King stood opposite him, and although they were on equal ground, there was an undeniable air of superiority about him. Foreigner, though you are a weak and strange individual, it appears you possess quite a remarkable treasure. Gilgamesh seriously gazed into Roy's eyes. Like the flame within your soul. Yes, thank you for your praise. Just as Enkidu holds value for you, this flame is also my most precious treasure. Roy grasped the flickering flame at his chest, generously acknowledging it. This flame, which transcended fate and rebelled against a destiny passed to him, served as a bond and proof. For him, it was the most treasured possession. You dare to think that the flimsy bond between you and the Avenger can be compared to the friendship I share with Enkidu? This is an act of grave disrespect, sufficient for this king to tear you to pieces. In that instant, Gilgamesh's tone was filled with danger, his eyes gleaming with undisguised fury. Golden ripples undulated through the air, tightly surrounding Roy from all directions, the murderous intent unabashedly released. Archer, what are you trying to do? Seeing this scene, Artoria shouted anxiously and quickly stepped forward. Lancer, go stop him. Noticing the sudden shift in the atmosphere, Kenneth hurriedly instructed Fian to assist Saber. He could not watch his student fall victim before his eyes. Understood, Master. Fian approached with his spear in hand. Kid, do you really think those two can stop this king from killing you? Gilgamesh glared fiercely. Of course not. Roy shook his head slightly and candidly admitted it. At such a short distance, if you truly wish to strike me down, even Lancer and Saber would struggle to save me in time. However, I still do not intend to retract what I just said. Although I am inferior in strength, the bond between us will certainly not be less than that between you and Enkidu. Because for me, he is my unique Enkidu. Roy glanced at the countless noble phantasms peeking through the surrounding golden ripples, maintaining a calm demeanor as he locked eyes with Gilgamesh without fear. At this moment, the ignited flame blazed brighter, showing no signs of retreat even when surrounded by countless noble phantasms. The fire within his soul continued to burn. Silence lingered for a moment before one side finally broke it. Humphrey, you aren't too bad. Although foolish and weak, this unwavering will and emotion are still worthy of praise. Gilgamesh snorted, his icy demeanor vanishing instantly. He nonchalantly closed the open babilo around him. His indifferent gaze showed no concern for the encroaching Saber and Lancer. Fickle and self-absorbed, this was the arrogance of the ancient king, Gilgamesh. Alright, the battle ahead is no longer a mere game. In the face of such beings, even I must take this seriously. You holy sword wielder and Magus should stand behind me obediently and behold my glory. It will be I who shows you what a king's brilliance truly is. With that, Gilgamesh swung his hand sharply, reopening Babilu. A golden goblet emerged from the golden gate, and then he reached in to retrieve a strange herb emitting an unusual glow. The Great Grail of Ruck and the Herb of Immortality. Is that the Holy Grail? Seeing the true form of the golden cup, everyone present, except for Roy, who was already aware of Gilgamesh's abilities, widened their eyes in disbelief. If the Holy Grail had long been in Gilgamesh's possession, then what was the point of their participation in the Holy Grail War, fighting and killing for it here? What's so surprising about it? My treasury contains all the treasures of the world, and of course, this Holy Grail is also among my possessions. Seeing the astonished looks from everyone, Gilgamesh smirked disdainfully. In his eyes, possessing all the treasures of the world was only natural. After speaking, he quickly consumed the liquid from the Great Grail of Ruck along with the Herb of Immortality, raising his state to a peak of unchallenged prowess. Gilgamesh licked his lips, his eyes shimmering with dazzling light, The issue of magical energy has now been completely resolved. With that, I can unleash my full strength in battle. Crack 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 as he said, the surging magical power erupted from Gilgamesh. The luxurious armor studded with gold gradually shattered, revealing his well-toned upper body. Let the mythic battle unfold once more, false angel. Gilgamesh smirked, then drew his Enki from his back. With a swift motion, he transformed into a streak of light charging toward the massive angel. This battle was not just about protecting humanity. For him, this enemy was also the most worthy opponent to defeat in this Holy Grail war. Unlike the Gilgamesh of other times or worlds, who possessed the pride of a king, he still preferred to act as a hero. When facing a worthy opponent, regardless of whether the opponent was of equal or greater rank, he yearned to fight with all his might. So, at this moment, he would strike with his full force. Laughing and fighting, Gilgamesh felt his blood boiling. As his Enki swung toward the angel, the Babalu treasure vault opened once more, and dozens of A-rank or higher noble phantasms poured out. Without a doubt, these were the most precious treasures within Gilgamesh's treasury. The fierce noble phantasms fell like a torrential downpour, continuously crashing against the massive angel, forcing it to lower its head. Arg! Hit by the unending barrage of noble phantasms, the strange angel emitted wails of anguish, but soon new light wings emerged from the wounds pierced by the weapons, and in the blink of an eye, the angel's body grew even larger, its wings becoming increasingly blinding. Countless light wings behind him, like tentacles, constantly swayed and swung, carrying immense force as they slammed toward Gilgamesh amidst the encirclement. Have you evolved again? You monster, but this isn't over yet. Immediately afterward, Gilgamesh raised his hand to open more light gates, and those golden ripples quickly darted like lightning, instantaneously surrounding the angel from all four directions. Front, back, left, and right. Countless noble phantasms transformed into a sky full of flying blades, unhesitatingly piercing through the angel's body along with the swaying light wings, instantly pinning the angel from its body to its tentacles hard against the cement ground. The scene was magnificent. The King of Heroes actually suppressed this monster. Although it couldn't be exterminated, it was indeed restrained. The herb of immortality combined with the Holy Grail's amplification is truly terrifying. The King of Heroes is now more than 3 times stronger than when he faced it before. Fian couldn't help but exclaim. What are you still standing there for, Lancer? That monster is about to get up, hurry and stop that damned angel. Looking at the new tentacles continuously sprouting from the angel's massive body, Kenneth felt extremely anxious and hurriedly directed Fian to join the battlefield. Understood, Master. Fian nodded, wielding his spear and commanding the flow of water, then leaped into the fray. In the name of the command seal. Lancer, restore your full victory stance and engage in battle. The red light on the back of his hand flashed, and the last command seal on Kenneth's hand vanished. At this point, he had done everything he could. The next decisive battle was no longer something this modern Magus could intervene in. However, how many more unreasonable things must you dead folks do before you give up? Kenneth held his head, feeling a headache. And this damned monster is still evolving despite enduring such attacks. Can they really eliminate this thing? Who knows? After all, the very existence of heroic spirits is a manifestation of miracles, isn't it? Trust them, Professor, we still have a chance of winning. Roy shrugged, then turned his gaze to Saber, saying, Come and form a temporary contract with me, Saber. I believe you can guess it, Iris Veil has already turned into this ghastly form, and Amiya Giratsugu has already achieved immortality in his pursuit of redemption. Right now, that monster you unleashed is destroying this world, threatening all of human history. Whether you act as an accomplice, a wielder of the Sword of Promised Victory, or as King Arthur, you have a responsibility to clean up the mess they've left behind. So come and form a temporary contract with me, Saber. You surely don't want to exit the stage in such a cowardly manner, do you? This. Looking at the massive angelic figure engaged in fierce combat with Gilgamesh and Fian, the wreckage of the city already in ruins around her, and the cries of despair and terror echoing in her ears, Artoria gritted her teeth. Amiya Giratsugu, what he sought in his redemption turned out to be this thing, obtained at the cost of Iris Veil's life, resulting in such a monster. What has all his effort amounted to thus far? Is this grim reality the result of his endeavors? Roy extended his hand, providing an answer. Yes, this monster is the redemption he brought about. A self-proclaimed redemption. Gazing at Roy's outstretched hand, Artoria chose to take it. She made her response solemnly. I promise you, foreigner, as you said, in this Holy Grail war, I am indeed Amiya Giratsugu's accomplice. Iris Veil has turned into such a monster and those who have been hurt because of this. I bear an undeniable responsibility, and I will not deny or evade it. Now, I will personally rectify Amiya Giratsugu's mistakes and help Iris Veil find liberation. This will also be my own redemption. Very well, although you are considered Amiya Kiritsugu's accomplice, at least you've finally made the right choice, Saber. It seems you have indeed found your own purpose. Looking into Artoria's determined eyes, Roy smiled slightly, placing his hand on the back of hers. In that case, let's fight together, Artoria Pendragon, and use your efforts to repay the sins you and Amiya Kiritsugu carry. I will. Then let's start the contract. I hereby declare. Your body shall serve under me. My fate shall be your sword. Submit to the beckoning of the Holy Grail if you will submit to this will and this reason. Then answer. An oath shall be sworn here. I shall attain all virtues of all of heaven. I shall have dominion over all evils of all of hell. From the seventh heaven, attended to by 3 great words of power, come forth from the ring of restraints, protector of the holy balance. I pledge, I shall respond to the principles of the Holy Grail. Here I descend, responding to the summon of my master. Roy. Saber. Artoria Pendragon, contract accepted. In that moment, a dazzling light flickered once more, and as Artoria's magical power surged, a gust of wind suddenly whipped through. King of Knights returned to the battlefield in full victory stance. Then, let's fight together, Saber. Understood, Master. Chapter 56. 56 Preparation. A brilliant light erupted, and countless wings of light spread completely behind the angel, rapidly reaching a scale that blotted out the sky and covered the sun. At this moment, every corner of Fuyuki City was extraordinarily bright, and on the satellite map of Japan, it had already become the brightest point. The most important principle of the moonlit world, mystery should remain hidden, was now shattered by the commotion caused by the false angel, alerting the entire world. Whether Magus, executors, dead apostles, or ancient beings lingering in the modern era, all had noticed the significant change happening here. This situation had clearly escalated beyond what the 3 founding families of Fuyuki City or even a single lord could manage. However, rather than worrying about the aftermath, the ancient heroes and modern Magus present were more concerned with surviving the immediate crisis. If they didn't stop the angel before it activated the transformation ritual, humanity and the world would have no future. So the later consequences could be dealt with afterward. Right now, if the angel weren't dealt with quickly, even punishing those involved in the Holy Grail War afterward would be meaningless. Thanks to the barrage of noble phantasms unleashed by Gilgamesh moments ago, the number of light wings on the angel had evolved from hundreds to thousands, and its body, constructed of magical energy, had grown by a third in size. The white halo above its head, symbolizing its identity, had also expanded significantly. The concentration of ether in the surrounding area was rising rapidly. At this moment, the wings of light were dazzling like aurora ribbons, but they lacked the sanctity typically associated with angels. Aside from the terrifying pressure and an eerie atmosphere, nothing else could be felt from these chaotic, disorderly wings. Saber, Archer, Lancer. Even with the combined efforts of the 3 most powerful servants in the Holy Grail War, they could barely restrain this monstrous entity. This being was almost unbeatable. If the 3 of them unleashed their noble phantasms or launched their strongest attacks, the creature would be briefly suppressed, but it wouldn't experience true fear or take any significant damage. Instead, it would gradually adapt to the attacks and evolve, soon sprouting new wings from its back or wounds. Its body would grow even larger and more solid, rendering attacks of the previous scale completely ineffective. To continue suppressing it, they would need to escalate their attacks, but doing so would only lead to a vicious cycle. In fact, unless they could kill it in a single strike, continuous attacks would only accelerate its evolution. Even when Gilgamesh used a cursed noble phantasm from his treasury, one that prevented recovery once it inflicted a wound, the angel avoided the damage by shedding its injured parts and regenerating, much like a certain tailed beast. So, if attacking couldn't stop it, could they restrain or seal it? Gilgamesh, the king of heroes, of course, had considered such a straightforward solution, but neither option was feasible. This monster was constantly altering its surroundings, drawing more magical energy from the Holy Grail on the Earth's ley lines, continuously strengthening itself in preparation for the magical power needed to transform all of humanity. Even if they stopped attacking or managed to trap it, it would still continue evolving. The question of when it would amass enough power to transform all of humanity directly was only a matter of time. Whether sooner or later. After all, the Holy Grail and the Third Magic's ritual was inscribed within the angel's pure white body. The heavens feel and the perpetual motion core of its magical energy made it unbeatable. Once it gathered enough magical energy to cover the entire planet, the angel would activate the Third Magic, injecting ether molecules into the atmosphere and instantly covering the globe. At that moment, the entire ecosystem of Earth would be transformed into the Third Magic's creation. Immortal, undying soul beings. Therefore, they had no time to waste in this battle. No one knew how long it would take for the angel to accumulate the required magical energy. It might take a few more moments, or it could happen in the very next second. Since the perpetual motion core was inside its body, every second it operated generated an enormous amount of magical energy. By now, the battle had already demolished half of Fuiuki City. Countless noble phantasms rained down from the sky like a torrential storm, piercing through everything in their trajectory without mercy. Along with the angel's body, countless tall buildings were shattered in the violent storm. The enormous angel didn't bother dodging, only instinctively waving its light wings, which resembled tentacles, to fend off Saber and Lancer's attempts to restrain its advance. Although it was merely driving them away, the terrifying wings of light, each capable of destroying a town with a single swing, were devastating. Skyscrapers and the industrial structures humans prided themselves on were utterly meaningless in the face of such overwhelming power. Fortunately, the angel was guided by the principle of salvation. It didn't actively harm humans or destroy anything. It had been continuously moving from the beginning, accumulating magical energy from the ley lines and the grail. Even when intercepted by the three servants, it merely waved its tentacles to drive them away. In other words, if the angel truly wished to destroy the city, Fuiuki would have been swallowed by the furious tides like a raft in the ocean under the storm of wings. But they couldn't afford to let this drag on any longer. Everyone present understood this all too well. "You scoundrel! Are you mocking me?" Gilgamesh was infuriated as he watched the enormous angel continue to ignore him. Though it wasn't a true angel, its core, formed by the third magic, made it even harder to deal with than a real one. Its ability to constantly adapt and evolve, changing the nature of its soul, rendered Gilgamesh's noble phantasms in his Babylon as ineffective as striking cotton. What had once been able to suppress the creature now briefly had no impact at all, and it even dared to disregard him completely. The humiliation of being ignored burned like a fire in his heart. How dare it ignore the king? Who was he? He was Gilgamesh. The most ancient human king, the greatest ruler who had once accomplished the feat of slaying the bull of heaven with his closest friend. And now, even a mere false angel dared to overlook him? Don't get too full of yourself, you mongrel. An immortal body, constant evolution, an infinite source of magical power, the third magic, right? Do you really think this king can't deal with a false angel like you? For your insolence, you'll atone with your life. Witness the noble phantasm I am most proud of. With a loud roar, Gilgamesh raised his hand and activated the full power of Babylon. In an instant, countless chains shot out from the golden portals that surrounded the night sky, plunging into the ground with great force. My pride. My dearest friend. Enkidu. Unleashing the full power of Babylon, Gilgamesh summoned his most powerful noble phantasm. One he took the most pride in. This was the bond between him and his most trusted friend, Enkidu. Enkidu, the divine weapon from Sumerian mythology that could bind even the gods. Enkidu, chains of heaven. It was a mighty noble phantasm, one of the strongest in all of human history, but could it really work in this situation? Seeing the chains that emerged from the golden portals, Roy's expression darkened as he sensed trouble. This creature, although resembling an angel, wasn't one. It was merely a magical construct in the form and scale of an angel. While the chains of heaven could restrain gods, its effect on this creature would likely be minimal. Such an obvious fact. He couldn't believe Gilgamesh hadn't noticed it. King of heroes, this thing doesn't possess divinity. The chains of heaven won't be very effective. Phaeton furrowed his brow and warned. Humphrey, don't waste your breath. Of course, this king is aware of that. I have my own plans. Gilgamesh turned and shouted to the two servants behind him, from now on, you are no longer needed in battle. Focus on gathering magical energy to prepare for the release of your noble phantasms. Are you serious, King of Heroes? Artoria furrowed her brow in disbelief. Can you really suppress a creature of this scale? With its current rate of regeneration and adaptation, even if we release our noble phantasms, we won't be able to completely destroy it. Humphrey, fool. Of course, this king knows that. At the current scale, our attacks won't easily work on this thing. However, this king will join forces with my dearest friend to shatter this false angel. I will dismember this creature's body using even more noble phantasms, tear apart its flesh, and temporarily halt its regeneration. All you need to do is find its core hidden within the body and destroy it with your noble phantasms in one decisive strike. Tear apart its body and stop its regeneration. Can you really do that? Hey, don't underestimate the power of this king and my dearest friend. It's just a mere false angel. Even if it were a true deity, I could still kill it before your very eyes. So, Saber and Lancer, I leave the final blow to you. Don't disappoint me and my friend. At this moment, Gilgamesh's magical energy surged to its peak. The veins on his forehead bulged, and he smashed his raised right hand forward with force. Mere false angel, be shattered by this king. Igalima, The green horizon that opens 1,000 mountains in an instant, a massive golden ripple spread through the air, and a colossal sword, large enough to cleave mountains, descended from above the angel with a thunderous boom. Boom. The earth-shattering sound tore through the ground, and the gusts of wind whipped up sand and dust that tripped through the city. The enormous angel, despite its advance, was forced down by the immense weight of the sword, its legs sinking several meters into the earth. It's not over yet, false angel. The real show is just beginning. Gilgamesh's assault didn't stop. His crimson eyes reflected the sight of the angel pinned beneath the giant sword, and he raised his hands once more. Come, Salsagana. Then, a second unimaginable, gigantic sword descended from the sky. This one was engulfed in blazing flames that would never extinguish, illuminating the night sky as it plunged heavily into the angel's enormous body. The flames instantly ignited everything in their path. Salsagana, the horizon that burns away 1,000 seas, struck by the two legendary swords wielded by the Sumerian god of war, the angel's movement became restricted. Its massive body staggered as it was pierced and pinned to the ground, while its endless wings of light flickered and attempted to pull the two swords out. Swish swish swish, but Gilgamesh's attack grew even faster and more ferocious. Once again, the portals opened like lightning, and countless noble phantasms shot out like blades, slicing the angel's body into countless pieces. It was a horrifying sight. Although the angel's body, pierced by the giant swords, continued to heal rapidly, and the fragments sliced by the bladed storm squirmed and reconnected as itself repaired. New wings of light and more magical power continued to gather. There will be no more chances. Dearest friend, bind it. Gilgamesh shouted in fury. In that instant, the chains in the sky, like golden serpents, danced wildly. Each chain precisely wrapped around the fragmented pieces of the angel's body that had been sliced off, quickly dragging them into the Babalu to be sealed away. It's useless, false angel. No matter how fast your regeneration and adaptation, my dearest friend will capture every fragment of your body and seal it in the treasury. Now, how will you continue to heal and evolve under these conditions? Saber, Lancer. Prepare to strike. I'm ready, King of Heroes. Fiant smiled and nodded, as the magical energy he had been accumulating from the start now surged, rippling along with his flowing golden hair. If it's just at this level, I'm ready too. I can unleash my sword at any time. Raising her magnificent sword, Artoria lifted Excalibur high above her head. Well done, Saber. For the first time in this Holy Grail war, Gilgamesh laughed. He glanced at the angel, still trying to repair itself, and taunted it with satisfaction. Are you ready, false angel? Prepare to face your end. Swords rained down from the sky, swiftly moving through the portals of light, precisely severing the angel's right arm and head. Amidst countless cuts and strikes, Gilgamesh finally located the deeply hidden object within the angel's throat. I finally found you. Within the magical cocoon, the faintly visible figure was none other than the core of the third magic, the heart of the Holy Grail, Justice Liesrichvanens burn. Now, let this strike serve as our farewell. I, the king, shall tear off your false facade completely. My dear friend, lend me your strength once more. Raising his arm high, Gilgamesh softly recited the incantation to release the chains of heaven. Now, awaken, breath of the planet. The swirling chains intertwined, and countless golden serpents gathered like stars, resembling a shooting stars that tore through the night sky, carving a dazzling scar across the heavens. I, Enkidu, shall walk forward alongside humanity, and thus. At that moment, the meteor streaked down from the sky, like a flash of brilliance, piercing straight through the angel's throat, tearing away the false skin, revealing the essence hidden within. Humankind, be bound by the chains of the gods. Immuma Elish. The descending stars tore through the sky, a brilliant river of stars flowing endlessly, shredding all the angel's falseness and penetrating its throat, exposing its innermost core. The golden river of stars and countless intersecting lights and shadows were reflected in Gilgamesh's eyes. For a brief moment, he instinctively reached out, as if the beautiful figure of the green-haired one had returned to his side once more. It's been a while, Gil. Enkidu. Gilgamesh smiled slightly. Humphrey, it really has been a long time. Is such a method even possible? By using a noble phantasm to isolate the angel's fragments from its main body, it's suppressing its invincible adaptability and rate of evolution. Witnessing the overwhelming attack Gilgamesh unleashed, suppressing the angel's regeneration with visible speed, Kenneth was astonished. At the same time, he gained a new understanding of the sheer power of this mighty king of heroes. Was he the strongest of all heroic spirits? Kenneth couldn't be certain, but this power was undoubtedly the strongest in this Holy Grail war. If Gilgamesh desired, he could have ended the war in a single night. The power he displayed was undeniably invincible. However, it wasn't over yet. Kenneth shifted his gaze back to the angel, whose throat was pierced by the chains of heaven. Though Gilgamesh had suppressed it, it was merely suppression. The angel hadn't been truly defeated. After all, it was a manifestation of the third magic, one of the 5 true magics, and such a thing couldn't be destroyed so easily. Would the combined power of the 2 servants' noble phantasms be enough? Kenneth wasn't sure, but he knew he couldn't rely solely on this group of the dead. Their command seals were used up, and after such a long battle, Saber and Lancer were exhausted. Archer's assault wouldn't hold for long, and the angel would soon adapt and evolve once more. This was their only chance. If they couldn't kill the angel now, any further battle would be hopeless. But, looking ahead at the mythic battlefield unfolding, in such a scene, modern Magus, with their mortal bodies, were like grains of sand in the wind. Even the slightest glimmer could spell death. Kenneth gritted his teeth, drawing the jewel-forged short sword from his coat and coating his clothing with the last bit of moon essence stored in his gloves. As expected, this is a job for a true Magus. After a moment of internal struggle, he sighed, deciding to step onto the battlefield to assist Saber and Lancer in delivering the final blow to the angel. He wasn't sure if their noble phantasms alone would suffice, but with this mystic code, it would surely be enough. The jeweled sword's Elrech, a mystic code at the pinnacle of magic, uses the second magic to draw upon the vast magical power of infinite parallel worlds. As long as he could activate the magic within this sword and strike the angel's core, they would be able to defeat it. The purpose of Zelrach lending him this sword was for this moment. However, the risk of a modern Magus stepping onto a mythic battlefield was certain. Seeing the fragile skyscrapers crumbling like paper and the monsters already transformed by the angel, Kenneth couldn't help but feel fear. But even if he was terrified, he had to charge forward. Sola was still waiting for him in London. If he didn't defeat this angel here, all of humanity, including those he cherished, would be in danger. "Sola, please bless me," he murmured under his breath, steeling his resolve as he rushed forward. Just then, a hand suddenly appeared, pressing down on his shoulder. "What?" Startled, Kenneth saw that Roy had taken the jeweled sword from his hand and smiling. "Seriously, leave the cool stuff to me, Professor. Do you even know what you're saying?" "I know very well. But please believe me, it will be best if I personally end this farce." The flame burning deep within his chest was blazing fiercely. Chapter 57, 57 Chaotic the Torn Land. The shattered city. And everything else in fragments. All the scenes inside had transformed into scattered ruins before their eyes. The apocalyptic scene was now fully displayed over the ruins known as Fuiuki City. The Angel of Destruction was currently bound by countless chains converging upon it, intertwining and slicing through its form. The endless photons spilling from its wounds quickly bleached the entire night sky. In its struggles, the massive wings of light behind it continued to sway. As they fell, they easily whipped up fierce storms. In an instant, countless more skyscrapers and steel structures were sent flying. The nature of this battle had escalated from initial probing to a defensive struggle and finally into a life-and-death annihilation fight. In order to completely eliminate this false angel that had descended upon them, the 3 servants at the scene were no longer holding anything back. Various abilities born from noble phantasms were unleashed, pulling out every last possible trick. As for how many people were affected by this battle, none of them had the time or inclination to consider it at the moment. A battle of this magnitude left no room for distraction. In Gilgamesh's eyes, destroying a threat equal to the beast was something that could not be done without sacrifice. So, Saber. No, Holy Sword Wielder. Do not hesitate. I, your king, command you to release all restraints on your sword immediately and increase its output to maximum scale. Annihilate this being in one strike. There is no need to feel guilty. Do not waver. As long as we destroy this monster, every sacrifice made until now will have been worth it. It was clear that as the battle raged on, the number of casualties caught in its wake continued to rise. The cracked ground and the cries from within the scattered ruins stirred a sense of compassion in Artoria. At that moment, Gilgamesh loudly reminded her, "Saber, do not waste all these lives and the chance I have secured for you. I am fully aware, King of Heroes. But it's not enough yet. In my current state, with the magical energy I've accumulated, I can't yet unleash all the restraints to destroy this monster. So, just hold on a bit longer. Stall it for me a little longer." Still not ready. Hearing this, Gilgamesh frowned, his expression growing graver by the moment. By now, he had noticed the chains around his arm, his dearest friend Enkidu, were trembling. Though he hated to admit it, this situation clearly indicated that the binding power of the chains of heaven was beginning to weaken. Even with the combined strength of himself and his friend, they could no longer hold this false angel for much longer. It wouldn't take long for the monster to completely adapt to the chain's restraint and break free. This is bad. This situation isn't looking good. If it reached that point, they would be in grave danger. With the 3 servants in their current state, they couldn't withstand another battle. Moreover, the monster's condition had clearly reached its peak, and it could destroy humanity at any moment. They couldn't afford to delay any longer. Gilgamesh's eyes narrowed as he quickly made a decision. At the same time, the angel began to chant a hymn, holy yet dissonant, from its pierced throat. The eerie, unsettling sound echoed across the ruins, causing Gilgamesh's brow to twitch. He looked at the angel and saw that its recovery was speeding up at a rate visible to the naked eye, and the accumulation of magical power in its massive body was also accelerating. What? In this situation, Gilgamesh no longer cared about maintaining his royal composure. Veins bulged on his arms as he gripped the chain with all his might. He turned his head and roared toward Artoria behind him. Saber. Are you still not ready? How much time has passed already? The time you're taking to charge your sword's release. Are you toying with me? You are leagues beneath that guy. Gilgamesh, having crossed paths with Arthur of the past, clearly underestimated Artoria's strength. Not only in terms of raw power but also in the speed and potency of releasing her holy sword. There was a stark difference. Shut up. Artoria furrowed her brow, still desperately gathering the last of her magical energy. Although she could fire off her noble phantasm at any moment, the holy sword's release hadn't yet reached its maximum potential, which would be required to eliminate the enemy. Such an attack would be meaningless, so she had to keep accumulating power. Ugh. Feeling the chains on his arms gradually snapping and noticing Artoria's continued reluctance, Gilgamesh was furious. Even Fian shook his head slightly, expressing his helplessness as he diligently defended Artoria, fending off the falling attacks and noble phantasms from the battle to protect her during her holy sword's release. Do your best, King of Heroes. At that moment, Gilgamesh was left speechless, cursing in his mind. How had he ended up with such a burdensome ally? In this extermination battle, he was expected to deal the highest damage and take the most hits, and now, even counting on her to land a noble phantasm finishing blow was an ordeal. This woman was nothing like the holy sword wielder he remembered. Fists clenched tightly in frustration, Gilgamesh felt this kind of teammate was simply dragging him down. The holy sword wielder from that other world had unleashed a holy sword strike like an instant light cannon. Even if she needed to charge and break all the restraints, it shouldn't have taken this long. The angel's hymn grew louder. By now, more than half of the chains binding its throat had snapped, and the terrifying power and vast magical energy continued to accumulate within its body. Its wings and form became even more blinding. A sign it was approaching another evolution. At this very moment, the magical energy generated and accumulated within the angel had reached the level required to activate its spell. Once it broke free from all the chains of heaven, the world-altering spell would be unleashed. If it wasn't dealt with during this brief window, everything would be lost. Mongrel. A mere false angel dares to try and break free from my restraints? Don't be so naive. The terrifying force surged through the chains of heaven, violently constricting the angel's throat. Gilgamesh tightly gripped the other end of the chain, using it to support his body and restrain the angel with all his might, fighting for just a little more time. At this moment, as he wrestled with the angel, his body began to tear apart, and even his saint graph started to show countless cracks. The excruciating pain stabbed into his heart, but it also cleared his mind somewhat. Not finished yet. My perfect body is not something a creature like you can compare to. Despite his crumbling body, Gilgamesh spared a glance at Artoria, who was in the final stages of preparing her attack. Seeing the faint starlight spilling from her, he knew the time was almost right. Too slow, Saber. But as long as you make it in time for the final moment, it's still timely enough. The time you need now, I will buy it for you. At that instant, Gilgamesh completely disregarded the intense pain his body was transmitting. A crazed grin spread across his face as he forced his saint graph to its limits, unleashing his greatest strength. For a brief moment, the angel's body was actually strained tight by the chains. Ha 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 ha. A wild, unrestrained laugh burst from his lips as the crimson serpent-like pupils in his eyes fully revealed his true nature. Arrogant, audacious, yet unmatched in strength. Only one phrase could describe this brazen figure. Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the Supreme One. At that moment, it was as if the heroic king from the most ancient times had fully returned. The Golden King spread his arms wide, gripping the chains of heaven wrapped around his arm. Veins bulged on his forehead, and the chain, cracking in several places, tightened around the angel's massive body. His body began to dissolve into spirit particles, and wounds started to rupture. At this point in the battle, both his body and spirit origin were at their limits. Yet, Gilgamesh drowned it all out with his triumphant laughter. The pride of a king would never allow him to retreat from this fight in disgrace. The king acknowledges, the king bears the burden, The king decides the fate of this world. In this final moment, Gilgamesh had done everything he could. His will had been fully conveyed to his two comrades behind him. The holy sword, radiating golden starlight, stood before Artoria's chest. Her gathered magical energy had reached its peak, and she had now entered the ritual to unleash the Excalibur. Sword is in motion, restraints of the round table released, round table decision start. K acknowledged this is a battle must be to live, Bedivere acknowledged this is a battle with the enemy more powerful than oneself, Garrus acknowledged this is a battle that does not against humanity, Lancelot acknowledged this is a battle not against the elemental. As a series of dazzling lights illuminated the blade, Artoria continued to release the seals, with each seal unlocking a brighter and more brilliant light. In mere moments, nearly half of the seals were fully activated, as a radiant stream of stars gathered onto the sword in her hands. In the end, it was nothing more than a false angel, lacking the divinity and authority of a true god. Its existence posed a great threat to humanity and the very essence of human order, easily making it a target for the Holy Sword's special attack. As the angel struggled violently, countless rays of light fell from its luminous wings. Fiant swung his spear relentlessly, gathering streams of magical-infused water to deflect the falling light and weapons, standing steadfastly in front of Artoria. Compared to his own situation, Saber's imminent release of the Excalibur was the most crucial. His primary task was to support Saber, ensuring she could deliver the final blow. There was no room for other thoughts. For the sake of this last chance at victory, even sacrificing himself was worth it. So, bring it on, false angel. No matter how many attacks you throw, I'll block them all. Despite the angel's attacks being blocked, Artoria's Excalibur continued gathering power. In the angel's eyes, the towering pillar of starlight grew increasingly brilliant, the light radiating from the Excalibur triggering an instinctive sense of danger. In that moment, this false angel, born and existing solely to achieve salvation, finally felt fear. The fear of annihilation. It had no concept of death, and what it feared wasn't the destruction of its own existence but the void left behind by its unfulfilled mission of salvation. At that moment, the once indifferent false angel finally moved, driven by its deepest emotions. Buzz buzz buzz, no longer just playing around, the countless light wings wrestling with the chains of heaven covered the sky like a curtain. Each wing descending carried immense destructive power. They merged in the heavens above, creating a field of destruction that, in an instant, enveloped the entire city. At that moment, the sky itself seemed to fall. A destructive divine light. It's coming. This is quite excessive. Up until now, this thing we've been fighting had no desire to actively attack or destroy anything. But now, this angel, or rather, this monster threatening humanity, driven by its instincts, can no longer sit idly by. No matter how much it pretends to be an angel, its true nature cannot be hidden. It is an enemy of humanity, a foe of human order, and in the face of the Excalibur, it has revealed its true self. You two truly live up to your reputations as renowned kings, playing vital roles in this battle. In that case, I must not fall behind. So, let me handle the last bit of time. Lancer. Looking up at the nearing sky, Fian chuckled softly, resolutely stepping in front of Artoria, then released his noble phantasm. Oh flowing water, gather here, this endless wisdom. This single blow has slain even fallen divine spirits. Taste its wrath. Makan Luin. Blinding wings of light fell like meteors streaking across the night sky, plummeting toward the ground with unimaginable speed, containing terrifying destructive force. The power of this strike was enough to wipe the city, and even the entire nation from the face of the planet. This was the full-strength attack of a high-ranking archangel, with no mercy. Faced with a true threat to its survival from the Holy Sword, the false angel prioritized the salvation of humanity above all else. Everything and everyone standing in the way of that goal became targets for destruction. And so, it made the same choice as Emi Akiritsugu. A choice called to sacrifice the few to save the many, a decision made unilaterally. As the gathered light wings fused and ascended, the light of destruction filled the heavens, drawing closer. If these wings exploded over Fuiuki City, the resulting impact would instantly plunge the entire nation into the sea. Destruction was now just a heartbeat away. At that same moment, a horizontal flash of light suddenly appeared in the darkness. The immense angelic body trembled slightly, and then the water flowing from the spearhead surged forward like the arrows of the gods, mercilessly rushing toward the falling light of destruction. In the blink of an eye, no more than a second or two, the strongest noble phantasm released by Fian, containing all his strength, was effortlessly swallowed by the descending aurora-like light of destruction and quickly overwhelmed. Even the strongest noble phantasm of a servant seemed utterly insignificant and powerless in the face of this all-consuming celestial light. Even though Fian had exerted all his strength, it only delayed the inevitable by a mere half-second. But it was enough. Even those brief 2 seconds were enough. As the light of destruction descended in front of him, Fian glanced at his broken spear with a bitter smile. It's over. His role in this war, acting as a support, was now complete. He had fulfilled his duty as a sacrificial pawn, creating the final opportunity. Now, everything depends on you, Saber. Mordred acknowledged this is a battle against evil. Agravain acknowledged this is a battle for the truth. At the very moment when the light of destruction was about to consume everything, the remaining light on the holy sword finally illuminated completely. After tireless effort and countless sacrifices, the 13 restraints entwining the Excalibur had all been fully released. Arthur Pendragon acknowledged this is a battle to save the world, when the breath of the planet converged and the life force surged. The final restraints entwined around the holy sword were also released. Artoria raised the Excalibur, its light piercing through the night sky, and with all her strength, she swung it heavily at the falling firmament. Excalibur, the holy sword, created to save the world, unleashed its brightest radiance. Facing a false angel that sought to obliterate humanity, she struck with the most powerful blow of judgment. The white and gold converged into an absolute force of light and heat, an overwhelming power that was beyond words to describe. In the instant the starlight exploded, both the angel's body and the falling sky were swallowed by the light and completely annihilated. The battlefield, the enemies, and everything visible vanished within the starlight. The chains of heaven that pierced the throat, the massive body filled with endless magical energy, and the countless wings covering the sky. All were instantly erased in the starlight. At this moment, Gilgamesh hurriedly retracted the chains of heaven and opened his treasury to activate his defensive noble phantasms. In the blink of an eye, only the ever-extending golden torrent was reflected in his eyes and in the eyes of all watching across the world. What is that light? Is that a galaxy? But why is it golden? How beautiful. Let's make a wish. At this moment, people around the world stopped what they were doing, gazing dumbfounded at the golden star river crossing the sky, expressing their amazement. Except for the satellites and space stations in the space that were shattered by the sudden pillar of light. Foo ha 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 ha. Yes, that's it. The holy sword wielder should be like this. Only an attack like that can completely annihilate this being. I know this holy sword's power all too well. Even if in a different world and wielded by a different person, the brilliance of this Excalibur remains as dazzling and unstoppable. A mere false angel cannot withstand this all-out strike from the planet. Gilgamesh laughed loudly, paying no mind to the fact that his body was gradually disintegrating into spirit particles. With all the commotion, even with the Holy Grail and the herbs replenishing his magical energy, his Saint Graph could no longer hold. The chains of heaven coiled around his arm finally reached their limit with a faint rumble and cracking sound. You've done well, my friend. Gilgamesh gently caressed the now broken chains. His body, like cracked porcelain, began to crumble. I've taken care of the hardest part. Now, for the final cleanup, you can struggle all you like. Just don't disappoint me. Ha ha ha. With that, Gilgamesh dissolved into spirit particles and disappeared. That guy. He was clearly at his limit for a long time. Artoria looked deeply at the platform where Gilgamesh had vanished. The King of Heroes. What a truly unique ruler. But it seems it's my turn to exit the stage as well. A bitter laugh sounded. Compared to Saber, who was barely managing to stand by leaning on her sword, Fian was in an even worse state. In the moment when the falling sky collided with a starlight, he had used the last of his strength to shield his master, Kenneth, with his body, which had almost been completely spent. He had walked the final path of this Holy Grail war. His spear had long since broken, his magical energy exhausted, and half of his body destroyed by the angel's light. Before departing, Fian knelt down with great difficulty before his lord. Thank you, my lord. To have met you and witnessed this Holy Grail war until the end, I am truly satisfied. Lancer. Humphrey, you've done well enough. At least you haven't tarnished the name of El-Meloy. As my servant, you've proven yourself worthy. Kenneth patted his shoulder and said. Rest easy now. Leave the rest to the modern Magi. That's truly a relief. Fian closed his eyes and dissolved into spirit particles. At this moment, both Archer and Lancer have officially exited the stage. But still. Is this thing for real? In such a situation, how could it still be alive? Looking at the still writhing ball of light hanging in the sky, both Kenneth and Artoria's faces darkened. How could this be? How could it have survived such an attack? No, rather than survive. It would be more accurate to say that only a portion of it remained. At the last moment, this being had retracted all the magical energy it had accumulated into its core, simultaneously perishing and regenerating, preserving just its core and stubbornly resisting Excalibur's torrent. My lord, do not forsake me. A familiar voice sang a hymn from the remaining sphere of light. Was it the angel? No, It was Magus. His soul was awakening from heaven's feel. After enduring the Excalibur, he did not die but instead broke through and evolved again. This time, his soul and the angel were gradually merging, gaining sentience. With only a bit more magical energy, he could emerge from his cocoon as a new being. You must be kidding. There's no way I'll let you revive again. Seeing the sphere of light squirming and rapidly gathering magical energy, Artoria shouted in anger, raising the sword of promised victory with both hands, preparing to charge her noble phantasm again. But that's enough, Saber. There's no time for another release of the Excalibur. A voice suddenly appeared, as Roy gently patted her shoulder. You've done enough. Leave the final blow to me. What are you planning to do? I'm going to destroy him. Suddenly, Roy leaped up, using the shattered stones on the ground as a foothold, and flew toward the expanding sphere of light in midair. The jewel-encrusted dagger in his hand radiated a seven-colored glow, representing the initiation of the second magic's ritual. Connect countless circuits to infinite parallel worlds, circulate the magic, and release. In the moment of contact, the jeweled sword effortlessly pierced and ignited the entire sphere of light, striking straight at its core. This was the first clash between the second magic and the third magic. The first substantial collision between two of the 5 true magics. The scene before him could only be described as miraculous. Magus, open the door. I've brought you some warmth. Roy kept his gaze fixed on the light mass in front of him, which continued to resist in a desperate struggle. His eyes flashed with a sharp glint, and the output of his magic circuits instantly increased several levels. The jeweled sword he wielded, imbued with terrifying power, plunged viciously into the core of the light mass. At that moment, the massive light mass seemed to be violently provoked. Its shape distorted rapidly as it began to struggle, and countless tentacles emerged from it, grasping Roy's limbs in an attempt to tear him away. Don't be shy, let me take a look. The moment the tentacles, capable of easily altering souls, touched his body, Roy's eyes flashed gold. The flame in his chest erupted without reservation. The pitch-black flame clung to the tentacles like a relentless parasite, igniting the light mass and causing the creature to scream in agony. Compared to a powerful noble phantasm, the burn that struck out its soul was far more fatal, especially when it touched the souls of both a foreigner and an avenger. Stop struggling. Stay still, don't worry, it'll be over soon. The pain will only last a moment. Roy tore through the tentacles that were wrapping around him, along with the black flames burning on his body. Swinging the jeweled sword, he slashed a deep gash across the surface of the light mass. The screams grew louder, and the struggle continued, but with the residual third magic consumed to such an extent, how could it resist this confrontation between two of the 5 true magics? Feeling the direct impact of two magical forces clashing, Roy's expression began to twist from the excruciating pain tearing through him as different colored lights warred against each other. It felt as though his entire body would fall apart at any moment. Blood streamed from the corners of his eyes, his body torn apart in various places, and even his very soul was undergoing a silent, profound transformation. In the gaps of this clash, both his soul and body endured unspeakable pain. Is this hell? No, it can't be. Even hell wouldn't be this painful, would it? This awkward state of being unable to live and unable to die, suffering from the pull of two ultimate forces, was agonizing. If it weren't for the steel will passed on to him by the Count, Roy would have surely crumbled here. It hurts so much. Someone, get me out of here, let me die. Anything, just make it quick. But no, it's not over yet, not yet. The one who caused this to happen to me is still struggling, and the thing inside hasn't completely died. So, he keeps pushing. Increase the power. Tear this thing apart entirely. Shred it from the outside in and crushed it, making the one responsible pay for everything. Open up for me. His roar was accompanied by the sound of tearing. Tearing both the light mass and himself. A severed arm and the open gash appeared simultaneously. A massive crack opened on the light mass, revealing the path to its core. Roy leaped into it. It's over now, heavens feel. At last, he had torn everything apart and reached the innermost core, the soul. Standing before a boy, none other than Magus. From this distance, there was nowhere left for him to run. Gripping the jeweled sword with his remaining hand, Roy drove it fiercely into Magus' chest. In that instant, the sources of both magics collided completely. Then, a blinding white light obliterated everything. A towering pillar of light shot straight into the sky, illuminating the stars above the entire Japan. Once again, the whole world was shaken. Now, neither those on the surface world nor those on the reverse side of the world could sleep. Tonight's series of major events had left both sides of the world in shock. Whether they were experts or novices, people across the globe were already rushing here, and before long, the entire Japan would become bustling with activity. The boundary between magecraft and science would likely be shattered at this very moment. Unlike Kenneth and Artoria, who were temporarily blinded by the pillar of light soaring into the sky from the perimeter, Roy, who was at the core of the Holy Grail and in the gap between two true magics. Within this absolute pillar of destruction, he seemed to glimpse a faint light. What's the meaning of you falling here? You fucking useless thing who can't even replicate the vessel properly, you can't even handle this. In a void of endless darkness stretching infinitely in all directions, a voice suddenly echoed. Ha 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 ha, don't be so impatient. After all, that child's time was delayed for so long, it's only natural he's fallen to this state, isn't it? That may be true, but this is far too tragic. He never understood his own miracle. No need to rush, no need to get angry. Thanks to that fake, we've acquired something valuable. Heh, quite right. Even though it was just a boring farce, as spectators, we are the greatest beneficiaries. Another indistinct voice spoke from the depths of the darkness. After all, we obtained the key. Come to think of it, wasn't it because we sealed his powers and didn't guide him to find his way that he ended up in such a miserable state? Though those two trivial wills played a part, his own negligence can't be ignored. My, oh my. This child could have been greedier. Even more voices echoed from the other side of the darkness. But are we really going to just watch this child die? If we don't intervene soon, his soul will be drawn into the vortex, and won't that be a problem? Shouldn't we just pull his soul out? Whoa, hold on. Calm yourself, Mithra. If you actually did that, Yog-Sothoth would certainly be furious. Don't forget what its projections foretold. Let nature take its course. You and I both know the wisdom and judgment of Yog-Sothoth all too well. We should refrain from acting, to avoid interfering with the outcome and skewing the expected future. If someone recklessly intervenes and lets the sweet fruit slip from our grasp, they'll have to face the wrath of all their kin. The voice of crawling chaos held a note of seriousness. Nyarlathotep is right. Trusting in Yog-Sothoth's plan is the best choice. Although this planet is weak and insignificant, some of the beings on it are still quite sharp. Besides, in this stage, we are far too large in scale, Mithra. At this point, that demon born from the legacy of the King of Magecraft has not yet begun to act, and the gaze of the alien gods has merely brushed past this planet. The truly interesting events have yet to unfold, and we don't need to intervene so early. Even if I use my best technique to greatly weaken our own scale, creating a vessel to ensure that this world doesn't collapse, it's only a matter of time. And if our arbitrary actions attract the attention of that magician, or other interesting bugs on this planet, then things could quickly become very uninteresting. Stubborn persistence is quite absurd. It would be easy to kill that guy if we wanted to, yet the most chaotic among us insists on adhering to such a boring principle. It's really ironic. Ha 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 ha, isn't it contradictory? I think so too. When this thought came to mind, I found myself questioning what I was really thinking. However, we have already obtained the key, now we just need to wait for the right moment. At that time, we can use Nyarlathotep's method to create a suitable vessel and personally join this game. Honestly, I didn't expect the wait to be so long. I still want to be with that child as soon as possible. Alone in this universe, she must really need her mother's company. Company? You're not planning to run away, are you, Shub-Niggurath? Don't say it so harshly. Nyarlathotep, I simply want to take care of my child as her mother. Caring for a child as a mother? You're quite altruistic, Shub-Niggurath. Claiming to be his mother is due to that child's strange memories of you, right? When he was pulled into the rift, I suspect you weren't able to sit still either, were you? Not at all, I just found it hard to watch. After all, as a mother, seeing my child suffer pains my heart as well. How hypocritical, Shub-Niggurath. Do you even remember how many offspring you have? None, really. I never pay attention to useless children. That's very much like you. Another voice suddenly chimed in. Speaking of which, if we didn't have the key, it wouldn't be so bad, but now that we have it, we can only observe and not join in, which is quite intolerable. It's so close yet so far. Calm down, Cthulhu. This is beyond our control. If our interference causes whatever lies dormant in the Crystal Valley or other beings sleeping on this planet to awaken, then there will be no game for anyone to play. Moreover, that child seems quite concerned about this fragile planet. Besides, if we insist on intervening, that man guarding the outer solar system won't just stand by and interfere with our game. In the void of space, a man was sitting with his eyes closed under a tree that emitted brilliant energy. Then let's wait patiently. The endless years have been endured, this is merely a fleeting moment. Can't we endure just a bit longer? And what about the vortex? Should we just let him be drawn into it without worrying about whether his soul can return? Soon, another voice joined the tea party. Don't worry, Deolith. That child won't be harmed even if he enters the vortex. His soul cannot be assimilated, and the only one who will suffer a headache from staying inside for too long will be the vortex itself. Besides, doesn't he like that girl in the vortex? Let him go in and meet her. Excessively interfering with this kid is not what we should do. Exactly. We've endured through the long years, and a few years or even a decade is merely a short nap. What's there to be anxious about? Just wait peacefully. Before the right moment comes, it's best to continue observing that child. And don't you find it interesting? Watching how that child's emergence can shift the world to some extent is a fascinating thing. All of us should just wait patiently. Hey, don't say that to me, Shubniguarat. Aren't you and Nyaralathotep also looking forward to this? Or perhaps all of us who are aware of this child are already itching to act. Ha 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 ha, I can't deny that. A different record, another concept, a new world where we can freely expand is already within reach. When that time comes, we won't be bound by this so-called dream anymore. Just thinking about it makes me ecstatic and impatient. You're right, this is indeed much more interesting than everything that has happened in the past. Being able to break free from the confines of the record is exactly the framework imposed on us. To be able to freely act in such a way is simply wonderful. It seems that arriving here as soon as we sensed a living being crossing the boundary of the record was indeed the right choice. Grand Order? Interesting, interesting. Our gaze has already turned here. Soon, this place will become the center of the entire record. When the time is right, we'll be able to join this interesting game, and we can use this child's power to completely leave this place and gain true freedom. Hee, breaking away from the dream and reaching the outer side of the fixed record to become an independent entity is truly unimaginable. However, don't rejoice too soon, Nyaralathotep. The biggest problem still depends on that child's attitude toward us. I don't think he'll cooperate obediently or sincerely trust us so-called outer gods and evil gods. This issue is indeed worth considering, especially since my image in that child's memory is indeed somewhat problematic, although it is true for everyone. However, especially you. Nyaralathotep, that child has the worst impression of you. Ha ha ha, Shubniguarat, aren't you also claiming to be his mother because you saw the child's memories? But it's fine, none of this matters. No matter how that child feels about us, he will become one of us. As companions, all we need to do is take him home, that's all. Heh, companions? So we have such an absurd concept? Is that your familiar method of deception again? In that case, I'll quietly look forward to your performance then. Just don't mess it up, Nyaralathotep. Of course not. When the time comes, I will approach him with the suitable identity I create using the key in my hand. Just so happens that he has a favorable impression of me. Interesting, interesting. I must get involved when that time comes since I was the first to discover that child. That's fine, it's no problem. But it was actually Yog-Sothoth who found that child first, right? He's still busy looking for that girl named Abigail. Shut up. Nyaralathotep. I found him first, so whoever finds him first gets to claim him. You really are as unreasonable as ever, Time Lord. The crawling chaos in the black mist let out a sharp laugh. But such matters are utterly unimportant to us. I'll do as I please without worrying about others, acting according to my own preferences. This is our privilege. However, I'm really looking forward to meeting that child. I truly want to possess him. Chapter 58, 58 Holy Maiden. The momentary light vanished in an instant. The intersection of two distinctly different magics, space and time, and soul, brought forth a terrifying power capable of annihilating everything. In the final moment of death, the only sight reflected in his eyes was a blinding white light, before his body disintegrated. Is this what death feels like? He quietly closed his eyes, thinking this, but the darkness did not come as he had expected. No, it seemed he was still alive. Soon, he realized it. Because his soul had not settled nor had it reached the destination it was supposed to. Opening his eyes, Roy found himself in a dreamlike place. The scenery around him flowed, just like the Avalon in his dreams. Here too was a mix of countless colors, with vibrant petals constantly falling in the gentle breeze. All he could see was a sea of flowers stretching infinitely along the horizon. There was no sunlight here, the sky was a curtain of pink and blue, yet it radiated a colorful halo. Light and a gentle breeze echoed throughout this world, creating a warm and peaceful atmosphere. If it weren't for the absence of the familiar white tower and the annoying figure of the incubus, he would have really thought of this place as some scenic spot in Avalon. However, the scenery here was enough to amaze him, rivaling the stunning view he had when he first entered Avalon. What a truly beautiful sight. Roy squatted down and picked a colorful flower, bringing it to his nose to inhale its faint fragrance. He had both touch and smell. This was not the Avalon of his dreams. Then he looked at his arms, waved the arm that should have been torn off, and found that the wounds on his body had healed completely. His body was restored, and both his sense of smell and touch remained, but the magic crest and the saint graph were gone. A spiritual form. But does a spiritual form with senses really exist? And where exactly was this place? After confirming that he was not in a dream, he began to analyze his situation. Just then, he heard an ethereal voice coming from behind him. Isn't it beautiful? That's how I feel. After all, this is the beautiful world I took a long time to construct. Who? Roy, who had been admiring the scenery, suddenly heard the voice behind him and instinctively became alert. He turned around and saw a graceful figure in a white dress, a beautiful silhouette wearing a golden crown, smiling at him. She was the owner of that voice. Iris Veil? At this moment, if it were Emiya Garatsugu or Artoria present, they would surely call out the name of this woman immediately. However, this was not her. Roy already knew her true identity. Seeing her, he could guess without a doubt where he had been taken. Thus, Roy nodded slightly to the woman in front of him, then smiled and greeted her. It's good to see you still exist. Thank you for saving me. Because the Holy Grail was suddenly invaded by the soul of that saint, I lost my control as the Greater Grail and could only fall into a brief slumber until you defeated him, allowing me to awaken again. At this moment, the Holy Grail, appearing as the Holy Maiden of Winter, Justice Liesrich von Insburn, wore a faint smile as she expressed her gratitude to Roy. I must thank you and all the servants for everything you've done. Then she gracefully walked towards Roy. The white garment danced in the wind, and as Roy gazed at the Holy Maiden of Winter, who was so close, he couldn't help but be mesmerized. Her flawless, beautiful face, complemented by the grace of her garment, made her look like a queen in winter, attracting him irresistibly. However, his attraction was merely admiration. He harbored no impure thoughts towards such a beautiful and holy woman. To this, the Holy Maiden of Winter smiled gently, gracefully displaying her beauty. But Roy quickly got to the point. Since you are here, it means that the Holy Grail still possesses the ability to grant the victor's wishes, right? Indeed, the final victor. I still have the ability to fulfill wishes. She affirmed with a smile. So, as the final victor, what is your wish? Hearing the Holy Grail's affirmative reply, Roy pondered for a moment before asking her. Can any wish be fulfilled? Yes, the Holy Grail has accumulated a tremendous amount of magical power from the ley lines, far beyond imagination. Although a considerable amount has already been consumed, the remaining magical energy is still sufficient to grant wishes. She smiled and gave a positive reply. I see. Then can you restore everything affected by the Holy Grail War? Restore? So you mean to erase all the harm? Can you do that? I mean restoring the buildings and natural environments destroyed by the angel to their original state and returning the humans who died or were transformed because of the Holy Grail War back to their previous forms. Can you accomplish these 2 points? Yes. Very well, then please fulfill this wish of mine. By the way, Holy Grail, I am also a target who died because of the angel, so I should be able to be resurrected, right? In a short time, Roy's brain raced with thoughts, and he finally came up with this mutually beneficial approach. A method that could both resurrect himself and eliminate the enormous impact they had caused was to exploit a bug in the Holy Grail, to make a single wish that could encompass multiple situations. However, this time, the development of the situation was not as smooth as he had anticipated. The Holy Grail shook its head. That's not possible. Although I can accomplish wishes that reach the realm of reversing life and death by utilizing the vast magical power accumulated from the angel and the Holy Grail, I'm sorry, I do not have the ability to resurrect you. Why? Roy swallowed hard. The Holy Grail did not respond, merely lowering its gaze and silently looking at Roy. I see, so it's indeed because of my own circumstances, isn't it? This annoying identity of being a foreigner has really brought me a lot of trouble. Hearing that he was once again excluded, Roy inevitably felt a bit disheartened, but thinking about his special nature, he quickly guessed the reason and soon felt relieved. Then there's nothing that can be done. I'm sorry. No, you don't need to apologize. This is my own issue, it's I who am being unreasonable. But before I leave, may I ask you one more question? Holy Grail. Please, go ahead. The Holy Grail nodded slightly. When the Holy Grail disappears, what will happen to my soul? Will it completely dissipate into the universe, or will it, like you, sleep in the realm of the Holy Grail? A moment of silence. I'm sorry, I can't determine where your soul will ultimately go. The Holy Grail shook its head and replied, your soul is very special, and even the heavens feel cannot provide a definitive conclusion about your existence. I can't give you an accurate answer to this question. I see. Thank you. Then please continue to fulfill the first wish. Roy continued. Do your utmost to restore all the people who died in this Holy Grail War and all the destroyed buildings. I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. A hint of sadness surfaced in the depths of the Holy Grail's gaze, but Roy remained quite indifferent to it. It's alright, you've already helped me a lot. At least I won't feel regret in the end. You are the true saint. Ha, I'm not a saint, just an ordinary person. An ordinary person who doesn't want to involve others. Roy shook his head slightly. The abnormality of this Holy Grail war, whether it's the appearance of the Count of Monte Cristo or Mikasa Tokai Sada's seizing of the Holy Grail, is a result of the changes I brought about, causing the scale to expand to this degree and affecting so many people. For me, my current actions are not some grand act of saving the world, it's merely a form of atonement. I'm just an ordinary person who wants to make amends for my mistakes. Upon hearing this, the pure white maiden draped in the robe shook her head and gently caressed his face with her snow-like hands, resting her forehead against his as she said, "Then as you wish. Thank you, for giving me a chance to atone for my sins. No need to thank me, this is everything you deserve. I'm very sorry that I couldn't save you in the end." With a final farewell, the vast magical power gathered, and blinding light instantly enveloped Roy. The Holy Grail released hundreds of years' worth of magical energy gathered from the ley lines of Fuiuki City, along with the enormous magical power reserves generated during the angel's existence, completing the great feat of reversing life and death in that moment. In the blink of an eye, Roy's vision was drawn to the white radiance before him. Through the light, he could feel the breath of life gradually reviving. The wish began to be realized. Unable to contact. No matter how hard he tried to reach Waver, that underperforming student, he couldn't get through. It was no wonder, though, given that student's magical abilities, along with the loss of Ryder's protection, he probably had already died in the angel's indiscriminate absolute destruction, or he might have been transformed into an undead creature by the light. And that fool, Roy, had jumped into the Holy Grail's core with the jeweled sword, triggering an explosive burst before disappearing completely. Kenneth sat on the rubble, troubled as he dealt with the aftermath and thought about how to explain it all to the clock tower. They were all dead. Every single one of his students. Both the ones he had brought and the new ones. Had perished in the Holy Grail war, and this filled him with a painful sense of responsibility as a mentor. And that wasn't all. Once the clock tower and the Holy Church arrived in the city and saw the undead creatures wandering through the ruins and the concentration of ether, things would only get worse. In a situation that affected the entire world, even he, as the Lord of the Clock Tower, would not escape blame. Meanwhile, on the other side, there was still a bit of magical energy left in Artoria, who was desperately searching for survivors among the ruins. However, it seemed that the number of survivors in the entire city had dwindled to almost none. All had perished in this mythical battle. It was time to leave. If he didn't go now, he wouldn't be able to. Kenneth stood up, preparing to leave. At that moment, a rising surge of magical energy enveloped the entire city like a white shroud. The boundary between life and death was completely overturned in that instant. What is this? Looking at the falling white curtain, it was as if time had flowed backward within the light, buildings were rapidly restoring, and people were being revived. Kenneth rubbed his eyes, finding it hard to believe. This was a miracle that reversed life and death. Artoria, at the top of the ruins, stared blankly at the earth bathed in sunlight once again, a smile appearing at the corners of her mouth. Is this the miracle of the Holy Grail? Indeed, you are the final victor. Master. The immense magical energy was rapidly dissipating, most of the world-altering magical power accumulated by the angel was being destroyed under the starlight of the Holy Sword, no longer as terrifyingly inflated as before. Now, it had achieved a miracle that reversed life and death for the entire city, completely exhausting everything the Holy Grail had gathered. At this moment, the pure white figure of the Holy Grail became illusory and extremely unstable, as if it could disappear at any moment. In her final moments, she looked seriously at Roy, doing her best to offer her last sincere blessing to this lost traveler with her remaining strength. Though I cannot see your outcome, I wish to give you my final blessing. Her voice was soft, and her pure white figure began to dissipate in the light. I wish you a life of peace and no worries. I wish your soul can return to its true home. I wish you eventually find a happy ending. As the faint halo completely disappeared, Roy grasped the shimmering points of light floating in his right hand, also expressing his gratitude. Thank you for your blessings, I look forward to it as well. After expressing his thanks, he quietly watched the Holy Maiden of Winter's disappearance, seemingly bowing his head slightly, but quickly stopped himself and turned away, stepping into the gradually fading light. Chapter 59. Void. The so-called vortex refers to the swirl of the root, which is the origin of all causes and the starting point of various phenomena. According to the theorem that causes can produce effects, this existence can be regarded as ultimate knowledge. The term for the swirl of the root, or the existence state of the vortex, serves as a convenient summary for understanding. Even though the root is ultimate, it remains finite, Hence this is merely a concept for comprehension. Undoubtedly, whether it be the Magus or the truth seeker, their ultimate goal is to reach this pinnacle of existence. The root that Tasaka Tokiomi has long yearned to touch, the legendary vortex of radix. There are many ways to reach the root, and they do not repeat. The three founding families initiated the Holy Grail War, attempting to use the Greater Grail as a tool to help Magus reach the root. Tuko Ozaki once said that he tried to achieve the perfect form of humanity, that is, the realm of void, by creating puppet, or perhaps there is the naturally connected Shikiryu-ugi. However, regardless of the result or process, attempting to reach the root by any means is extremely difficult, even absurd. As a result, those who have reached the root until now are still few and far between, even for Magus families that have inherited for dozens of generations, it remains elusive. Yet now, a certain outsider has reached here in an impossible manner and state. Roy's soul, in the guise of the first-generation Magus, has successfully reached the root, achieving the long-desired realm that countless Magus from many generations have been unable to attain. Having watched the Holy Maiden of Winter fade away, after a moment of sentiment, Roy did not linger and turned to step into the starlight gate behind him. In a blur, he lost consciousness. With directions inverted and his head spinning, it felt as if he were falling into a bottomless abyss. Here was likely a vortex without end. In his unconscious state, Roy could not comprehend what realm he was in or where his soul would head next, but a massive, irresistible force was pulling at his soul, drawing it towards some location. Unable to resist or break free, Roy could only close his eyes, allowing this inexplicable power to guide him. Fortunately, this process did not take long. Within just a few minutes of being pulled, his soul had traversed an unknown distance and was swiftly led into the vortex. When he opened his eyes again, his consciousness restored, the initial confusion and discomfort vanished without a trace. Even the indescribable colors that had surrounded him were gone, replaced by a pristine white land. The roads beneath his feet extended endlessly, with countless paths stretching out before him. These roads seemed to represent countless futures, laid bare before his eyes. Every path he could see had no visible end, symbolizing that every future, every road was endless. At this moment, the sky above, devoid of anything, bore the warm sun, yet snow began to fall. Amid the spring snow, the shimmering light illuminated this world even more beautifully and sanctified, so peaceful and tranquil that it seemed a perfect place for souls to find rest. It seems this isn't the underworld. Has my soul arrived in heaven, or is it still within the Holy Grail? Looking up at the warm sun overhead and reaching out to catch the falling snow, Roy walked across this vast land, a hint of sadness in his gaze. Clearly, he still had regrets about his own death, but he didn't say much more. He simply stepped forward along one of the extending paths. I advise you not to move around too much. A sudden voice rang out. From the tone, Roy could tell that this voice did not belong to the Holy Maiden. Turning to look, he saw a girl in a kimono, quietly elegant with black hair, walking toward him through the falling snow. You are Void Shiki? Seeing the familiar yet strange figure, he cautiously inquired. Correct. While I am indeed connected to the root, I prefer to be called Shiki Ryougi. Sorry, Miss Ryougi. Hee, no worries, it's just a name. Shiki Ryougi said with a slight smile. It seems you truly know a lot. Even without the clairvoyance, you still understand the trajectory of the entire world. You seem weak, yet your existence has reached the utmost high, and even traversing the root cannot assimilate you. You are indeed quite special. Traversing the root and assimilation? I see. So this is the swirl of the root. The discord and drowsiness I felt before entering the vortex was due to the root trying to assimilate me. Upon meeting this girl, Roy realized exactly where he was. Indeed, the root will indiscriminately assimilate all beings that enter it. If the soul delves here, it will inevitably undergo assimilation. Even the magician of the second magic cannot escape this, only those truly connected to the root and residing there can arrive. Just like you and Manika Seijiu? Manika Seijiu? You're referring to that girl who is also connected to the root? I haven't formally met her, but that's true, she is also a magus connected to the root. For us, this place is actually no different from home. After all, being able to treat the root, the lifelong pursuit of a magus, as a home they could freely enter and exit is something only they could achieve. However, compared to us, you are the most surprising one. Shiki Ryougi carefully examined Roy and continued speaking. You have no connection to the root, yet you are able to enter in a spiritual state and traverse through the root unscathed to its depths. Even the swirl of the root cannot assimilate you, indicating that your existence has reached the highest level, yet your form of existence and the power you possess are not supreme, which is really strange. Reach the highest? Are you referring to Beanders? Listening to Shiki's explanation, Roy lowered his head and fell into thought. Just as Shiki said, Being able to traverse the route with one's soul without being assimilated could only be achieved by those who connected to the route, or perhaps only those beenders who have approached the end. Holy Spirit and Outer God. It's indeed very similar to those beenders, yet it seems not quite the same. Compared to the end they achieved through their training or the paths they walked, you seem more like a form of existence that comes from beyond the world. Foreigner. An outer God. But what kind of transcender was this state of mine? I'm just a pitiful person, a soul completely destroyed, a pitiful being whose spirit can never return to its home. Seeing Roy's dejection, Shiki gently patted his head, softly comforting him. Don't be so sad, you're a Magus, aren't you? To reach here is exactly what a Magus wishes for. Now you have completed the ultimate goal of a Magus, so you should be happy. Besides, your soul won't face the danger of assimilation no matter how long you stays in the route. So before worrying, take a good look around here, and then tell me how you feel about reaching the swirl of the route as a Magus, okay? How do I feel? A first-generation Magus has reached the route. No one would believe that this could even trigger a miracle. If it were any other Magus who reached the route, they would certainly be overjoyed at fulfilling their long-held wish, but for him. Looking at Shiki's bright smile, Roy couldn't help but bitterly smile. Thank you for your comfort, Miss Ryougi, but my wish was never to reach the route. I just want to live well, to live a peaceful life, and to live steadily with my friends and family. Family, huh? So you have already taken this world as your home? Foreigner. Shiki tilted her head in confusion. Yes, I've long considered it my home. I am different from the foreigners you might imagine. I don't have their powerful abilities, long life, or forbidden knowledge. I am just an ordinary person who has inexplicably crossed worlds or dimensions. My thoughts aren't profound, and my expectations aren't grand. I will be happy because of beauty and sad because of pain. Just seeing you here makes me very happy. She covered her mouth and laughed lightly. You're happy to see me? Yes, I'm very happy to see you. Roy nodded. Hee, I'm happy to see you too, guest from another world. However, one thing is incorrect. You are not as ordinary as you think. Your soul actually contains a special power that belongs to you, it's just that you haven't explored it. I have special power? That's right, you are definitely not ordinary. Shiki nodded slightly and continued, why not put in some serious effort to think about yourself? For instance, further explore the domain from 0 to infinity. Learn various kinds of magecraft, and even integrate magic. Your existence has unlimited compatibility. You don't need to explain much. The fact that your existence cannot be assimilated by the root shows the kind of value you possess. You indeed have the potential to become supreme. From 0 to infinity, integrating magecraft and magic, possessing the potential to become supreme. That's truly a high evaluation. I can hardly imagine that I possess such talent. This is not flattery, it's the truth. Shiki Ryougi smiled slightly, pointing to his chest. I see now, I finally understand why the counterforce wanted to eliminate me. They were actually afraid of me, fearing my abilities. Realizing this possibility, Roy covered his head and widened his eyes. Yes, the potential you possess is immeasurable. They didn't want to give birth to an existence that couldn't be balanced right under their noses, so at the very beginning, they wanted to limit you and kill you. But that has already ended. Indeed. After all, I am just a soul now. No, it's not like that. Shiki shook her head, correcting him. The Holy Grail War has ended, and the Holy Grail has completely vanished. But the miracle born from the third magic has succeeded. That Holy Maiden of Winter blessed you while fulfilling her wish. Those residual lights in your soul are her blessings to you and her thank you gift left behind. Just like the inheritance between the magician of the fifth magic, the magician of the third magic has deeply imprinted those points of light containing the aftertaste of the third magic into your soul. Do you know what this means? This means I have obtained the third magic? Correct. If it were just an ordinary soul, it could never meet the demands of bearing such vast magical energy as the third magic. But you are different. Even with the 5 true magic at the pinnacle of mystery, your soul can easily assimilate it. Mystery will yield to higher mystery. Compared to you, the visitor from the alien starry sky, the third magic is just a trivial matter. Shiki put down her hands and continued smiling, so congratulations. You are no longer just a visitor from an alien starry sky, but a genuine magician of the third magic, a magician of the third magic belonging to this world. Magician of the third magic? Roy was taken aback and quickly touched his chest, carefully feeling what was inside, as Shiki had said. He realized that there indeed was something within. The flame deep within his soul, these twinkling starlights, were not merely the essence of his soul, they actually contained remnants of the third magic. No, this is not a remnant, it feels more like sparks. These points of glow are quietly slumbering within his soul. Is this the gift the Holy Maiden has sent me? What a gift that is difficult to repay. Now, the false angel has been completely eradicated, and those who died because of the Holy Grail War have all been resurrected thanks to your efforts. So congratulations, magician of the third magic. Your efforts have successfully saved many people, further balancing the boundaries of magecraft and science in the world. Your identity has now been recognized by the Akashic record. And I am here to represent this world, and all of humanity, to express my gratitude to you. Shiki Ryougi smiled slightly, representing the world as she expressed her thanks to Roy. Your achievements are comparable to those great heroes in myth and epic. No, you don't need to thank me. I haven't done anything remarkable. Rather, it's because of me that things escalated to this extent, dragging so many innocent people into this. What I have done is merely a way to atone for my sins. You don't have to feel so guilty, what you have done is already the best. Without you, disasters would still have erupted, all the world's evils would also spread across the land, and many people would die because of it. Shiki Ryougi shook her head, slightly correcting Roy's thoughts. So, why not hold your head high as that king of heroes said, Roy? This is your merit and praise, you have saved many who were meant to die. Because of your efforts, the Holy Grail War has thoroughly come to an end, and the fifth Holy Grail War will never happen again. You are a hero. A hero. Roy stared blankly at his hands. So it turns out that without realizing it, he has saved many people. Tasaka Tokiomi has set aside his long-held wishes and left Fuiuki City with his family to avoid this disaster, and Professor Kenneth will also not. Are you very worried about your friends? Well, they're all pretty unreliable guys. I don't know if they can handle the upcoming life. Of course, I feel worried. Since you're so worried, why not go back and take a look yourself? Shiki Ryougi said with a light smile. You should prefer life over there more than here, right? Go back? Can I even go back? Entering the route and then returning to reality is something unimaginable. Even Roy was momentarily stunned upon hearing this. Of course, you can. The root can trap anyone in this world, but it cannot trap you, the soul that cannot be assimilated. Foreigner. The key is actually hidden within you, the third magic that resides deep in your soul will point the way back for you. As long as you want to leave, it will guide you. What you mean is... Roy raised his hand to grasp the heart that no longer existed, then turned to look at Shiki Ryougi standing in front of him in surprise. As you thought, the essence of magic is a means or product to reach the root. When you have already mastered magic, entering and exiting the root may not be impossible. As long as you want to leave, it will serve as a signpost to guide you. In other words, magic can be understood as not just knowledge or technique, but a path. As long as you walk on it, you reach the root, or you have already reached the root, which is why this path exists. It seems you've understood, then. The essence of magic is indeed like this. Shiki Ryougi smiled slightly, affirming Roy's statement. Her smile was like the first snow in early spring, stunningly beautiful. Seeing this, Roy couldn't help but be momentarily stunned, his face revealing an uncontainable joy. He then deeply bowed to Shiki Ryougi to express his gratitude. Thank you for your guidance, Miss Ryougi. No need to thank me, this is the reward a savior should receive. Having become a vessel of the heavens feel. A magician, you are now an uncontestable existence. Now that the Holy Grail War has ended, the counterforce will no longer target you. And, just call me Shiki. Calling me Miss Ryougi feels a bit strange. Is that so? Roy felt puzzled. There is a very special point in Japan. Most people are very particular about others calling them directly by their names. For those not too close, it's usual to refer to surnames or full names. If the relationship is somewhat distant, they might even add honorifics. However, Roy didn't think too much of it. In his view, Shiki Ryougi could no longer be considered an ordinary person, she shouldn't be measured by ordinary human standards. Since she didn't like that form of address, he could change it. Okay, I understand. If you don't mind, I will call you directly, Shiki, is that right? Shiki Ryougi nodded with satisfaction. Although I still have many things I want to continue discussing with you, there are many matters in the outside world waiting for me to confirm, so I will take my leave for now. Roy said seriously. The attraction of the root to other Magus is undoubtedly deadly, but for him, the attraction here is far inferior to the outside world. Rather than pondering and studying magic here, he would rather immediately go out and meet those friends, helping them resolve those hidden dangers. Though he enjoyed chatting with Shiki, the importance of his friends outside came first. Are you leaving already? Shiki Ryougi looked at Roy in surprise. You haven't confirmed your condition yet, don't forget your body has been blown to ashes. If you just go out like this, you'll become a ghost. A ghost that has reached the root? PFFT, that description of yours is quite fitting. Shiki Ryougi laughed. But that's indeed how it is. So should I first look for a suitable body to possess, or should I condense one using magical power? Roy began to ponder. No need to complicate things, don't forget where we are. This is the root, the place where all miracles are realized. Borrowing some power from the root to help you condense a suitable body is quite simple. Seeing Roy's troubled expression, Shikiryu-ugi smiled and shook her head. Her slender hand had already rested on his chest as she softly spoke. Then relax a little, I'll help you condense a suitable body. Thank you. Roy also smiled in return, fully opening his soul and allowing Shikiryu-ugi's hand to rest within it. At that moment, the countless miracles and magical powers that existed within the root collectively lost control, swirling toward Roy's soul, enveloping his entire essence within a forming shell. The four eyes silently met at that moment. Chapter 60, A brand new tomorrow. The day after the Holy Grail War ended successfully. The entire city awoke from this nightmare in a daze. The dead were revived, the shattered city restored to its original state, and the light emitted by the Holy Grail smoothed over every trace. This included the marks left behind by the servants, who had quietly returned. Since Tasaka Tokiomi had let go of his obsession and left Fuiuki City early with his family, the chain reaction triggered by the Holy Grail War did not affect them. They enjoyed a few beautiful days on vacation in Kyoto. Due to Prota Gilgamesh's appearance, Kotamin Kairai had not been swayed by him. Instead, he continued to live as an executor, constantly searching for the meaning of his existence, still busily at work. As for Kenneth, he was utterly speechless, overwhelmed by witnessing the miracle displayed by the Greater Grail firsthand. Last night, he saw with his own eyes the city's rebirth and restoration, the reversal of life and death. An extraordinary power that only existed in myths had manifested once again in this era. Afterward, he quickly found the recently resurrected Waver in the reborn city and hurriedly boarded a plane back to the clock tower with him, leaving Fuiuki City in the dead of night. If they didn't leave soon, trouble would certainly follow. The Mita residence, which had been set ablaze and reduced to ashes by the Avenger, Count of Monte Cristo, just a few days ago, reappeared in the city thanks to the miracle of the Greater Grail. In the pitch-black basement, the writhing pit of worms pulsated faintly. In the darkness, countless worms gathered and formed a dried-up figure that appeared in the mansion's main hall. Hey! I'm still alive. Is this the power of the Holy Grail? Has it resurrected me? In the empty mansion, Matuskin, mummified in appearance, crushed the cane in his hand and muttered darkly. His memory was still clear. He remembered being completely killed by a servant, with even his worms burned to ashes. He didn't know who that servant was, but their existence was his nemesis. The hellish black flames, capable of igniting even souls, easily consumed his body and spirit. Under that scorching heat, he couldn't endure it. When he tried to escape by controlling his worms, that figure crushed him instantly. How did that person know my most secret life-saving technique? What's going on? Not even my useless descendants knew about my worms, yet that servant not only called out the name I had long forgotten but also understood my technique completely. Was that person an acquaintance I had forgotten, or did they possess some clairvoyance? That damned servant, to think they killed me. To make me suffer such pain, it's absolutely unforgivable. And that worthless Mitakaraya. How dare he betray me? Remembering the night he was attacked by the servant and Mitakaraya's inaction, allowing the Black Knight to watch as he was killed, the veins on Matuskin's forehead bulged in rage once again. The Holy Grail has already disappeared. The Fifth Holy Grail War won't happen again. That servant must have returned to the throne of heroes, and some fool must have made the wish to resurrect everyone. Along with his resurrection, even the magic crest stolen by the servant had returned to his body. But compared to the now useless crest, Sakura's body was of utmost importance. As long as I obtain that young, vibrant body, there's still hope. The Holy Grail War can't end like this. One day, I will obtain the Grail, I will. Matuskin muttered under his breath, and countless worms hidden throughout the mansion began to writhe, gathering around him, waiting for his command. Go, find that worthless Mitakaraya immediately. He must know where Sakura is. Buzzing with Matuskin's furious roar, the swarm of worms rushed out the door. But just then, who's there? Sensing a powerful magical energy suddenly approaching, Matuskin widened his eyes and shouted toward the door. Whoosh! In that instant, the swarm at the entrance, along with Matuskin's field of vision, was swallowed by an intense burst of light and heat. With a thunderous explosion, a fiery blaze soared into the sky, accompanied by black smoke. The recently restored entrance to the Mita mansion was blown open once again, leaving a massive hole. FBI, open up! Amidst the billowing black smoke, a tall figure casually walked through the shattered door, still smiling as they glanced at the ruined mansion. Who are you? The old worm, with half of his body blown apart by the magical blast, wasn't dead. More worms crawled out from the walls, quickly burrowing into his body, restoring his missing parts. Seeing such an eerie number of worms wriggling into a mummified body before his eyes, Roy couldn't help but grimace. Internally, he couldn't help but complain. How disgusting. How did this guy fall from water magecraft to this grotesque form? Answer me. Who are you? Did Matukaraya send you to kill me? Seeing Roy remain silent, Matuskin's face twisted in fury. This trespasser had invaded his workshop and killed many of his precious worms, enraging him beyond measure. The Holy Grail war was over, the servants had returned to the throne, and yet these brats dared to come to his door. How dare they? He was still a magus of great standing, not someone to be trampled on by just anyone. Fool, no matter who you are, for doing this, you'll die here. Seeing Roy remain silent, Matuskin's bloodshot eyes issued a furious and cruel roar. Blade Wing, cut his limbs off for me. At Matuskin's command, thousands of green, blade wing worms flew out of the nest, their wings vibrating rapidly, emitting a sharp buzzing sound. Wherever the swarm passed, everything was cut into pieces without resistance. Watching the swarm of winged worms rushing toward him, Roy had no more patience to engage with this disgusting old man. For someone like him, with an aversion to swarms, this was beyond bizarre. From the start, he didn't want to waste words on this repulsive thing. There was no need for any conversation between him and Matuskin. Because this old worm was definitely going to die here today and in the most final sense. Since you were once burned by the Count's flames, this would be the perfect way to finish the job. Old worm, let's help you relive the experience. Roy spread his hands, channeling the seemingly endless magical energy within him to ignite the flame deep within his soul. Fold, open, rotate, pull. As he completed the final gesture, he flattened his left hand, and with 2 fingers on his right hand, he drew a flaming longbow to full tension, ready to fire. Roaring accompanied by the sound of air being scorched, a black flame arrow quickly formed between his hands, the dark fire illuminating Roy's face, reflected in his eyes. This black flame was something that old worm Matuskin would never forget. This flame, inherited from the Count's hatred, could not only burn the body but also ignite the soul. Even the dead Apostle Roa once perished in its blaze. This black flame could be called the nemesis of monsters like Matuskin. Even though his body was fake, his soul was real. If hit by this flame, his already decayed soul would instantly become fuel, suffering from both physical and spiritual torment. You. Who exactly are you? Seeing this hellish flame again triggered Matuskin's dying memories. The agony of being tortured to death by the black flame was something he would never forget. Zkin's eyes widened in despair, his heart filled with hopelessness, as he lost all will to fight. His decaying body quickly transformed into a swarm of worms that fled in all directions, but it was already too late. Release. Roy whispered. The overwhelming magical energy fully ignited the black flame, consuming everything in its path, whether buildings or living beings. In an instant, thousands of worms were completely annihilated by the flames. Zkin's all-out attack was laughable in the face of this fire. But the sweeping flames were far from finished and showed no sign of stopping. The swarm ignited in an instant, and the terrifying wave of fire scorched Zkin's body. In that moment, Zkin once again experienced the excruciating pain of his soul being set ablaze. Ah! Zkin's screams echoed throughout the mansion, the agony of his soul being burned making him wish for death. Physical pain could be dulled through modification or replacement, but the torment of the soul could not be escaped. It had to be endured. With his soul long decayed from constant body replacement, the fire burned even more fiercely, its effect against him even more potent. Once struck by the flame, the battle was over in an instant, with no possibility of reversal. Watching Zkin, now engulfed in flames and writhing in agony on the ground, Roy showed a trace of regret in his eyes. However, the regret was not for the old wormskin but for a genius long since past. A once brilliant magus had fallen into this decrepit state, just as an ally of justice had turned into a wretched monster clinging to life. Time and obsession truly could change a person's soul, twisting their will. Matuskin. No, Makiri Zoljan. As a magus who inherited your legacy, allow me to now ignite your decaying soul. You bastard. Who are you? Zkin roared, glaring at Roy with bloodshot eyes, gritting his teeth in one last desperate question. Why? Why do you all interfere with me? You crush my dreams, trample on my efforts. What's the difference between you so-called ally of justice and me? I curse you all with blood, curse you. Ah! Roaring the flames ignited. Roy no longer wanted to hear any more of Zkin's nonsense. Raising his right hand, he ripped away Zkin's magic crest along with a piece of skin that hadn't yet been consumed by the black flame. And then... burn. With that word, the black flame fully ignited, reducing Zkin's decayed soul to fuel and erasing his existence from the air. Roy glanced back at the large Matu estate, then raised his hand, and in an instant, the flames erupted completely. The 100-year-old Matu family mansion was burned to ashes that night, along with the soul and past of Makiri Zuljan, buried in the sea of flames. Good night, Makiri Zuljan. So, my old home was set on fire by you again? There was no other choice. There was a huge nest of worms hidden beneath the mansion. If those eggs and worms were released, it would have caused a big problem. Burning it down was the best option. In the afternoon, Roy and Matu Karaya were strolling through the park, chatting casually. Karaya's face no longer looked as pale as before, and even his complexion had improved considerably. That's true. That mansion had long been transformed into a worm's nest by the old worm. Burning it down was indeed the best solution. Karaya said with a bitter smile, shaking his head. It's just a shame about all the valuable antiques stored in the mansion. My brother is probably going to lose his mind over it. He didn't pay much attention to it, though. Compared to a mansion and wealth, what mattered more to him was that the old worm was finally dead, and now no one would disrupt his life or harm Sakura's future anymore. What happened to Berserker, Lancelot? Did he fulfill his wish in the end? He also left on the same night you departed. But he had a smile on his face when he left, so he seemed quite content. It looks like both of you managed to fulfill your wishes in this Holy Grail war. I see. It's great that everyone accomplished their goals. Karaya said, letting out a sigh of relief. What about you? How does it feel to come back from the dead? Do you have any plans for what you want to do next? Travel the world or continue being a writer? Well, I'm not really sure. Karaya said after a brief silence. The old worm is dead, and Sakura has returned to her previous life. After all this, that idiot Tokiomi should know better than to repeat his mistakes. Now, Aoi and Sakura should be living happily. I don't really have any regrets anymore. I haven't even decided if I want to say goodbye to them. Are you sure you have no regrets? Or is it that you just don't want to see Tokiomi again? Roy shook his head slightly and then spoke, revealing the inner conflict Karaya was grappling with. Are you worried that after leaving so dramatically and saying all those cool words, going back now would be awkward? Yeah. Karaya chuckled bitterly. I really can't hide anything from you, huh? While I'd love to see Aoi and Sakura again, I just don't want to face Tokiomi. Even though I beat him, thinking about all the foolish things he did makes me afraid I won't be able to stop myself from hitting him again. Honestly, you've come back from the dead, and you're still hung up on things like this? Roy patted Karaya's shoulder and said, but don't leave any regrets. You gave up your happiness to protect her. Now that you have no more worries, what's there to hesitate about? Go say goodbye properly to your first love and to Sakura. At the very least, leave a mark in their hearts. One that shows a man named Matu Karaya existed. After saying this, Roy smiled and left the park, leaving Karaya alone on the bench, staring blankly at the blue sky. Leave a mark, huh? Honestly, I already did that a long time ago. Chapter 61, 61 Redemption. What does it mean to be alive? What does it truly mean to live? Emiya Garetsugu had long since lost the ability to define what it meant to be alive. Ever since the day he personally killed his father, he had been lost. In that moment when he was engulfed by the light of an angel, his mind went blank, and everything he had experienced so far played back in his mind like a revolving lantern. The meaning of life, human will, and everything he had ever hoped for was emptied in that instant, and his soul felt as though it had finally been freed. Peace. Everything he had pursued until now was for the sake of finding true peace. But when he was resurrected, his soul forcibly summoned back to this world by the miracle called the Holy Grail, he was lost, and in pain. He didn't even know if he was truly alive or dead. Looking at the perfectly restored city, the bustling streets, and the endless stream of cars, he was overwhelmed by a sense of despair and loneliness that suffocated him. The city around him, restored to its former state, felt completely foreign. Everyone had returned, and the life or death struggle of the past 7 days now seemed like a dream. The dead had been resurrected and the broken buildings were as good as new, but only his beloved was gone forever. Irisavi-eel. Emiya Garetsugu, this pitiful man, knelt on the side of the road, crying out in despair like a child who had lost something precious. Having experienced loss once again, he had fallen into complete despair, and all he could do was cry out helplessly. Garetsugu's wails echoed through the streets, attracting the attention of nearby residents and passers-by. They didn't know who Emiya Garetsugu was or why he was crying. To them, he was just a disheveled man who seemed mentally unstable. No one dared to approach and ask what was wrong, most coldly ignored him and walked away, while a few kind souls dialed the police. But this situation didn't last long. Just as he had been revived, Miyahisa, who had been searching for Garetsugu, found him, wailing amidst the crowd. Garetsugu. Mia looked at the man who had once saved her from a hellish situation and was filled with hope to save the world. Now, he was reduced to this state. Despair, sadness, powerlessness. These emotions filled her heart as she watched the man kneel and cry after everything was over. "I'm sorry, Garetsugu. If I had been more useful, if I could have helped you more, this wouldn't have happened. I'm sorry. Garetsugu, let me take you away from here." Tears welled up in Mia's eyes as she knelt down and wrapped her arms around Garetsugu's neck, resting his head on her shoulder in an attempt to give him the last bit of warmth she could offer. Though she knew it was futile. Then, using her slender arms, Mia supported Garetsugu and slowly led him away from the crowd. Passers-by watched the pair, some offering to help, but Mia declined them all. In this way, before the police arrived, she led the now hopeless Garetsugu away. Until a figure appeared before them. As the sun set, the shadow elongated with the sunlight, and a tall figure extended a hand to greet them. "Who are you?" "Yo, long time no see, hero of justice and his trusty assistant." The figure waved at them from a distance. "In such a hurry to leave, aren't you going to properly thank your savior?" "Savior? Are you the one who revived everyone?" Mia was momentarily stunned by Roy's words. "Correct, but there's no reward for guessing. It was I, the one who cleaned up your mess and made the wish to revive everyone. In order to clean up the mess you left behind, I suffered terribly. The pain was horrifying. I even watched as my own body was slowly torn apart by magical energy, starting from my brain." Roy smiled and pointed to his forehead, mocking Garetsugu without hesitation. "But what happened to you, Garetsugu? As a hero of justice, why have you suddenly sunk into despair? Didn't you successfully make your wish? Is this broken appearance because you witnessed the shattering of your dreams? Or are you repenting for the wrongs you've committed? After all, this time you were the biggest accomplice in pushing humanity to the brink of extinction. The whole of Fuiuki City. No, the entire world. Was turned upside down because of you. Shut the fuck up." Seeing Roy continue to provoke Garetsugu, Mia hurriedly interrupted him. Quiet, accomplice. I'm here to speak with this hero of justice. You have no place here. You. Wait, Mia, let him continue. I have some questions to ask him. Garetsugu. Alright. Watching as Garetsugu slowly stood with Mia's support, Roy smiled. So, hero of justice, are you finally ready to have a proper conversation? Seeing the near-broken state of Garetsugu didn't surprise Roy. For someone like Garetsugu, the greatest punishment was forcing him to witness everything he had worked for crumble before his eyes, denying the meaning of his existence, and tormenting him both mentally and physically. Yet, even after seeing Garetsugu like this, Roy didn't feel the satisfaction he had expected. Instead, a faint sense of indifference and pity arose in his heart. How pitiful. That was his most straightforward feeling. Since his resurrection, to eliminate those revived by the Holy Grail's power, he first rushes to the Mito family and deals with the old worm, then finds that murderer Renezu Cryulu broke his limbs, and left him at the police station's doorstep. He could say that everyone who needed to be dealt with was systematically eliminated by him. Now, the only one left was Emiya Garetsugu, the person who had suffered the most from this Holy Grail war. And now, Garetsugu was clearly receiving the punishment he deserved, having fallen to the brink of a mental breakdown. You are the last victor. Did you wish for the resurrection of everyone? Looking at the person before him, Emiya Garetsugu spoke with difficulty. That's right, my wish was to resurrect everyone. Then, already guessing what Garetsugu wanted to ask, he shook his head. Don't kid yourself, Emiya Garetsugu. I know what you're thinking. The scope of everyone only includes humans. At that time, Iris Veil had completely become the vessel of the Grail, so she no longer counted as human, which means she's truly dead. Upon hearing this, Roy sneered. And the one who forced her to fully become the Holy Grail, abandoning her human identity. Why don't you take a guess who that was? How about it? Emiya Garetsugu's eyes widened, his hands and voice trembling uncontrollably. With Roy's words, the last shred of hope or possibility in Garetsugu's heart was utterly shattered. It was me. I killed Iris. I am the murderer. How does it feel, Emiya Garetsugu, to once again push someone you loved into the abyss? This time, your actions have caused an irreparable regret, one even the miracle of the Grail cannot save. Are you still clinging to your delusion of salvation for humanity? Garetsugu's eyes narrowed, and he instinctively clenched his fists. After hearing the answer, his mindset was dealt another heavy blow. Salvation for humanity? Again and again, losing those he loved, weighing them on the scales as sacrifices. Using their deaths to save humanity. Save, then kill. Kill, then save. Over and over. In the end, he no longer even knew what he was doing. Humanity. Just a series of numbers in his eyes. Could this really be called saving humanity? What have I been doing all this time? What kept me going until now was the light quietly illuminating my path. And now, That last light, the only light, had been extinguished by his own hand. What am I doing? Ah! He clutched his head, digging his nails deep into his scalp, wailing like a child in anguish, crying out from the depths of his soul. At that moment, after losing the ones he loved again and again, he finally understood everything. But now, it was too late. It seems you finally figured it out, Emiya Garatsugu. Roy sighed as he walked towards the dejected man kneeling on the ground. Too bad it's too late. It's like the trolley problem. There's a train speeding down the tracks, and it's difficult to stop it in time. There's a fork ahead, with one person tied to the left track and 5 people tied to the right. As the decision maker, you can only change the track once. Which side would you let live? If it were you, you'd undoubtedly choose the side with the majority, right? Sacrificing the few to save the many has been your choice all along, hasn't it? But, Emiya Garatsugu, what do you think life is? A bargaining chip? Something measurable? Garatsugu looked up at Roy in disbelief, but he couldn't refute him, because he knew that if faced with such a situation, he would indeed make that choice. But, if he didn't make that choice, then what? Sacrificing the many to save the few. Wouldn't that be even more wrong? So what is the right answer? Besides sacrificing the few to save the many, what better solution is there? What should I do to be truly right? Idiot. Even now, you still don't get it? You put life on a scale, seeking balance, but how can there be balance when one hand is pressing down on it? Then, what is the correct choice? So, your brain really can't grasp it, huh? Roy spread his hands and said casually, then just don't make a choice at all. If you were the trolley driver, you wouldn't need to worry about whether to change tracks or not. Just focus on braking and doing your job. If you're the decision maker, you don't need to choose either, just go with the flow and follow fate, because you have no right to take anyone's life. If the result turns out bad, then so be it. After all, you weren't the one who put them on the tracks in the first place. As long as your choice is right, that's what matters. The so-called trolley problem is a complete joke. While it may sound cowardly and like avoiding the issue, I have no intention of weighing the value of 2 lives. I'd rather fight until the end than decide how many live or die. Do you understand? Rather fight until the end than weigh the value of life. Emiya Garatsugu was stunned, murmuring the reasoning Roy had just shared. But, is that the right answer? Do the survivors really find redemption? Even though they bear the burden of the others' lives? Who knows? Roy smiled faintly and continued, I'm just a person, not a god. I have no authority to decide who gets redemption or who must be redeemed. Just make your own choice, and as long as the path you walk leaves no regrets, there's no need to feel guilty towards anyone. Alright, I've said everything I needed to. There's no point in continuing this conversation while you're in such a pitiful state. I should get to work now. Looking at the now confused Emiya Garatsugu, Roy knew there was no need to continue the discussion. Everything that needed to be said had been said. Though he sympathized with Emiya Garatsugu, a tragic figure, that sympathy only went so far. He wasn't kind enough to forgive him without a second thought. He had no right to forgive the lives lost because of Emiya Garatsugu, and avenging wrongs was one of Roy's most important principles. With that, he raised his hand, preparing to take something from Emiya Garatsugu. What are you going to do to Garatsugu? Seeing Roy raise his hand with the intent to harm Garatsugu, Miyahisa, disregarding the disparity in power, suddenly pulled out a dagger and aimed it at his neck. It was clear she had been on guard from the start, ready to act at any moment. But she was too slow. Such an attack was child's play in Roy's eyes now. Come on, I've already told you I'm here for Emiya Garatsugu, Miss Mia. Why do something like this? Stop joking. I would never. Ugh. The moment she opened her mouth, even before she could finish her sentence, her body had already disappeared. A sharp, surprised scream echoed as she was sent flying. As if struck by a speeding truck, she was flung towards a clothing store behind them, crashing into a wall and losing consciousness instantly. Mia. Seeing his assistant knocked out in an instant, even the downcast Emiya Garatsugu couldn't help but scream. She was one of the few people left in the world he still cared about. He couldn't afford to lose her as well. Kill me. Please, just kill me. Don't hurt Mia anymore. All of this is my fault, it has nothing to do with anyone else. Please, stop. Emiya Garatsugu begged Roy, the man who had lost everything, choking on his own tears, hoping to exchange his life for Mia's safety. Though this scene made Roy feel like a villain from a movie, he knew that Garatsugu had caused the trouble in the first place. He was merely here to settle the score. But, as Garatsugu had pleaded, Roy had no intention of involving too many people. Although Miyahisa was Garatsugu's capable assistant, she was just a tool, one that followed his orders without question. Their grudge was not something for a mere tool to bear. I didn't kill her. I only used enough force to knock her out, though a few broken bones are unavoidable. From the beginning, the only person I came to settle accounts with was you. I won't drag anyone else into this." With that, Roy grabbed Amiya Giritsugu by the collar and lifted him. "Does that make you feel a bit better, Amiya Giritsugu?" "Thank you," he murmured, lowering his head. "Don't thank me. This is just settling a score. And I won't kill you either, because death would be a form of redemption for you right now, and I'm not that kind. You have to carry those sins and keep crawling through life. Now, I'm going to take something from you. Grit your teeth and endure it." As soon as he finished speaking, a blood-red petal bloomed in midair. A ball of golden light was ripped from Giritsugu's chest. Chapter 62, 62 New stage 3 months later. Fuyuki City Airport. It was a perfect day for flying. In the back row of the waiting room, a young man was dozing off next to the window. There was still some time before the flight to London, so he closed his eyes to rest. Thanks to the miracle of the Holy Grail, all the buildings destroyed during the war were restored, including his house, which had been wrecked by a gas explosion. Now, he had returned it to the group leader. Although the events of those days had caused quite a commotion, fortunately, they didn't have too much of an impact. The rift between the mystical and the real world was mended with the help of the Holy Grail. Everyone who came back to life that night treated the experience like a nightmare, and the Magi kept quiet about it. After resolving all the issues, he had packed his important belongings, preparing to leave the city that could barely be considered his home. It was hard not to feel a little reluctant to leave this place where he had lived for so many years. "Roy." While Roy was lost in thought, a lively voice full of energy reached his ears. Turning his head, he saw the energetic girl, Fujimura Taiga, who had came to see him off. Seeing who it was, Roy stood up with a smile and looked at Taiga, who was running toward him. "Oh, it's Taiga. Did you come to see me off?" "Hee, that's right. I even brought you a farewell gift," the girl said with a grin as she pulled a small black box from her pocket and handed it to him. "Is this sunglasses?" Roy weighed the box in his hand and, glancing at the special design, roughly guessed what was inside. "That's right. I bought these new sunglasses from Tokyo. They suit you perfectly, Roy. Try them on." "Thank you, Taiga. But these seem pretty fancy. Are you sure your allowance is enough?" Opening the box, he saw a pair of stylish, round sunglasses, just as Taiga had said. From the packaging and design, it was clearly a luxury item, no doubt expensive. They weren't that pricey, just 2 months of allowance. "I've been saving up." "Well, that's Roy." As they continued chatting, a powerful yet aged voice suddenly came from the entrance. "Grandfather." "Boss." Both of them stopped talking and turned to look at Fujimura, the group leader, who appeared at the doorway. "Yes, it's me." The elderly leader walked toward them, leaning on his cane. "Ah, so you really are leaving. Now that the organization is at a crucial point in its growth and transition, it's hard to see someone as young and capable as you go." He sighed, looking at Roy. "But perhaps it's for the best. Young people need to go out and experience the world. It makes a big difference. Besides, you've got too many secrets on you. There are things about you that even I, an old man, can't see through." "I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused, boss," Roy responded with a bitter smile. "But with so many capable assistants under your command, and Taiga, your excellent heir, I believe that even without me, the Fujimura group will have a bright future." "That's right, leave it to me, old man," Taiga chimed in enthusiastically. "Once I take over as leader, I'll make sure our group beats down the other organizations and shows them who's the real boss of Fuyuki City." Taiga patted her chest, striking a determined pose like a proud little tiger. For her, she had long been eager to take over the Fujimura group, officially becoming the boss of the gang, and then leading her subordinates to make a big move. Such a cool idea was quite attractive to a girl her age. "Hey, girl, it's still too early for you. It's not your time yet. Wait until I'm too old to carry on before we talk about that." The Fujimura boss shook his head and said grumpily, "Your most important task right now isn't about fighting and killing in the underworld. Focus on finishing your studies and stop thinking about all this nonsense." Ugh. The thought of the mountain of holiday homework waiting for her made Taiga lower her head in frustration. Seeing this, Roy couldn't help but laugh. It seemed that even the future gang leader of Fuyuki City struggled with homework. "Youth, take this with you." "This is?" Taking an envelope from his sleeve, the Fujimura boss handed it to Roy, saying, "When you're out in the world, you need to take care of yourself. Since you're going abroad, you'll surely need money. This envelope contains a check for 40,000 euros. Consider it a token from me and the group." This money was not only a form of support but also a reflection of the bond they had built over the years. Though they hadn't spent much time together, the old boss had come to see Roy as one of their own, An indispensable member of the Fujimura group. Smart, capable, and with a vision far ahead of most young people, Roy was vastly different from the typical headstrong or reckless youngsters. His bond with Taiga was also strong, making him someone the old boss could trust. He had even considered grooming Roy to eventually take over as the future leader, helping Taiga manage the group. But everyone had their own path. The old boss wasn't a stubborn, unreasonable old man. Since the kid wanted to go out and explore, he'd let him. After all, forcing someone to stay would only lead to unhappiness. As long as Roy remembered that the Fujimura group in Fuyuki City would always be waiting for him, it was enough. As an elder, the boss now simply wanted to give him a proper send-off. "Thank you, Boss Fujimura." Roy nodded and smiled as he took the envelope from the old man, offering a final farewell. "Boss, Taiga, I'm truly fortunate to have met you and the Fujimura group during the loneliest and most helpless time in my life. Even though I'll be far away from this city, I'll always remember this place, and the big family I had in Fuyuki City. If you ever need me, you can contact me anytime, no matter where I am in the world. Roy." As they said their goodbyes, Taiga silently stepped forward to give Roy a parting hug. "Brat." Hearing Roy's heartfelt words, the old Fujimura boss sighed, then blew out his mustache and grumbled, "Do you even need to say that? As long as you're alive, you'll always be a member of the Fujimura group. Don't overthink it. We old-timers are still tough and can manage for at least another 10 years. Just focus on taking care of yourself abroad, and reach out if you need anything. Yes, yes. Just don't find me too much trouble, boss." "Humphrey, cut the nonsense." The boss smiled, glanced at the flashing flight time on the screen, and said, "It's about time. I won't keep you any longer. Taiga, let's go." "Oh." Taiga responded, and just before leaving, she turned back to Roy and reminded him, "Roy, if you run into any trouble out there, just let me know. I'll bring the boys and back you up." "Yes, yes, I'll be counting on Fuyuki's Tiger, Boss Taiga of Fujimura Group." He, glad you know." After a brief exchange, Roy watched as Taiga and her grandfather left. As he stared at their fading figures and the thick envelope in his hand, he let out a bitter smile. "Seriously, I'm not a kid anymore. Do they have to worry so much?" He felt a warmth swell within him. It's already been 3 months, huh? Fuyuki City. A world that had risen from death. How quickly time had passed here. 3 months had passed. This marked the total time since the Holy Grail War had begun. During this period of intense activity, time had quietly slipped away. 2 months ago, the moment Roy returned from the route, he first visited the Mita residence to physically offer some warmth to a certain lonely old man. Then, he sought out a misguided youth, gave him a proper lesson, and ensured he received the punishment he deserved. After having a heart-to-heart with Mitakariya, Roy finally had a candid conversation with Emiya Giritsugu, emotionally, and, after obtaining what he desired, immediately headed for Tokyo. While various factions poured into Fuyuki City, digging around relentlessly to uncover the abnormalities that had occurred during the Holy Grail War, the participants had already long gone. Kenneth, along with Waver, had fled back to the clock tower at lightning speed, using the power of the Almeloy family to protect themselves. In their haste, they didn't even have time to retrieve the few magical furnaces they had restored in the Hyatt Hotel. Even Tasaka Tokyomi, who couldn't escape the scrutiny, brushed off those who came knocking with various excuses, claiming he had been eliminated days ago and thus had no knowledge of the Holy Grail War's secrets. The situation was brushed aside as the abnormal behavior of certain servants or masters, with blame shifted to the church, which had overseen the war. While it was shameless, that's how things unfolded. Most of the trouble had been caused by Magus Shiru. As the Mages Association and the land overseers deflected responsibility, Kotamin Kairai, the church's overseer of Fuyuki, could only close the matter with the ridiculous excuse of a gas leak. After all, the dead had been revived and the destroyed city restored. As long as they concocted a plausible explanation for the ordinary people, it would suffice. However, within the world of magecraft, both Magus, executors, and dead apostles alike could confirm that the pillar of light that shot into the sky that night, as well as the terrifying force capable of altering the planet's etheric environment, was real. They knew that the so-called Holy Grail was authentic. It truly existed. An ultimate force of life, a miracle of the Lord, or the power to reach the root. Thus, in this city, dead apostles secretly roamed, seeking out this immense power. Executors hunted for traces of Angel, while Magus pursued the possibility of reaching the root. These 3 factions clashed in the city, creating chaotic scenes like demons running amok. In the corners of Fuyuki at night, violent clashes often erupted, whether between Magus or more deadly encounters. But Roy paid no mind to these happenings. The Holy Grail had already erased all traces of the Holy Grail War. No matter how hard these factions fought or dug through the city, they would never find anything useful. Moreover, Tasaka Tokiomi, the land overseer, and Kotamine Kairai, the church overseer, wouldn't sit idly by. As long as things didn't escalate, such as deaths or exposure of mystery, nothing else mattered. Compared to these concerns, there were far more important matters awaiting Roy's attention. 2 months earlier. Outside a school in Tokyo. Roy sat outside the school gates, quietly waiting for his intended target. After several hours, the school day finally ended. He knew his target would be leaving soon. Glancing at the setting sun and the throngs of students pouring out of the school, a confident smile crept across Roy's face. "I've come for you, Shiki." Chapter 63 Puppet Master 2 months ago. Tokyo. "Hey, old man, are you the one following me?" At a corner somewhere in the city, the young, energetic girl full of life suddenly stopped in her tracks, waiting for the strange man who had been tailing her without any attempt to hide it. From the moment school ended until she was nearly home, this strange man had been following her but kept a respectful distance, never approaching recklessly. Was he afraid of the 2 bodyguards by her side? Though the 2 bodyguards with her were indeed skilled members of the Ryougi group, top-notch fighters, she felt like that wasn't the reason. "Miss. That strange guy has been following us since we left the school gate. He must be up to no good." A hint of caution appeared on the bodyguard's face. "A trafficker? No, a kidnapper wouldn't be this stupid. There's no way they'd approach with us by your side. Do you think it could be someone from another organization trying to harm the young miss? Do they have the guts to make a direct move on the young miss?" The older bodyguard's eyes gleamed with a hint of menace. "Better to be cautious. You take the miss and leave, and I'll stay behind to teach this guy a lesson." One of the bodyguards wiped his sunglasses, pulled a baton from his pocket, and prepared to confront Roy, intending to question his motives for following them. "Miss, let's go." The other bodyguard prepared to escort Shiki Ryougi away. "No need. I'll stay here with you and wait for that guy to come over." Shiki Ryougi shook her head, rejecting the bodyguard's suggestion. "I have a feeling this situation isn't as simple as it seems. But if there's danger..." One of the men tried to persuade her again, hoping to dissuade her from this risky decision. But Shiki Ryougi swiftly shut him down. "Are you saying you two can't handle one man?" Well. Senpai?" The younger bodyguard exchanged an awkward glance with the older one, who sighed in response. Since the young miss had spoken, if they continued to refuse, it would only imply their incompetence. Besides, with himself, a seasoned veteran, and a capable junior, he didn't believe Roy could cause any trouble. "All right. You stay here and protect the miss." "Understood, senior." The younger man, probably in his 20s, nodded in agreement and followed the older man's instructions. He scouted the surroundings for places to hide and led Shiki Ryougi to a relatively safe spot. He too took out his baton, prepared to intervene if things went south, even though he trusted his senior's abilities. With their plan set, the 3 of them stopped at the corner, waiting for Roy to approach. A few minutes later. At the corner, a middle-aged man stood in front of Shiki with a baton in hand, while another young man protected her side, glaring fiercely at Roy. Holding a glaring weapon in his hand, his attitude was already very clear. It expressed the sentiment, "If you dare to come over, don't blame us for being rude." In contrast to the highly vigilant bodyguards, Shiki, who was sandwiched between them, was quite curious about what this man, who had been following them all the way, actually wanted. This place was currently under the jurisdiction of the Ryougi family, and nearby members could arrive in a few minutes. If he truly wanted to kidnap her, it would be too dismissive of the Ryougi family to act here on their home turf. What exactly was he here for? As she focused, Shiki frowned. She felt something strange about this man. Although his figure seemed familiar and that face looked like someone she had seen before, she was certain this was the first time she had met Roy. "Hey, old man, what are you really trying to do by following us? Or do you have something you want to do? This is the Ryougi territory. Even if you want to kidnap me, you wouldn't be foolish enough to choose this place, would you?" Staring at Roy's face, Shiki felt increasingly familiar with it, but no matter how much she tried to recall in her mind, she couldn't find any impression of this person. "Old man, are you stalking me?" "Not stalking, just following." Roy, who was being closely watched by 3 people, showed no signs of nervousness. Instead, he raised his hand to correct her. "If possible, please don't call me old man. I'm just over 20, you can call me Roy." "Oh, so you do know me, old man. So, you're stalking us after all. Guess? Or interpret it however you want, but I did come to find you, Shiki. Why are you suddenly calling my name directly? Are we that familiar, old man?" "Well, we met briefly not long ago, but for you, today can be considered the first time we meet." "Bastard. So you really are someone sent by another organization, huh? Let's subdue him together. After the simplest exchange, although they hadn't talked much, some felt there was no need for further communication. In the next moment, the two bodyguards beside Shiki immediately charged at Roy, weapons in hand, swinging their batons directly toward his face. Their moves were swift and ruthless. If it were an ordinary person, they would probably take that hit hard and pass out. However, for someone like him, it was too naive. Roy merely smiled slightly, remaining motionless, and then, snap, he raised his hand and snapped his fingers, causing the pupils of the two bodyguards to reflect a vivid blue butterfly pattern. Their movements also synchronized and slowed down until they stood dazed in place, without any motion. This is no longer your business. Consider it as if nothing happened, and leave. Yes. The two bodyguards, still dazed, nodded blankly and walked away from Roy. What is this? Shiki seemed to have discovered something interesting. Just a simple suggestion, Magecraft. However, I added a bit of my own understanding to it. It feels like a dirty trick used by villains in movies to easily deceive unsuspecting girl. Shiki blinked, looking at Roy, who had now come in front of her. Old man, you're not some disgusting lolicon, are you? Are you planning to use tricks like this to hypnotize me into doing something like that? Roy was somewhat speechless. Are elementary school students nowadays this open-minded? What exactly are they teaching you in school? Or is it all self-taught? Shiki, I have some doubts about the upbringing level of your Ryougi family. You know me? Upon hearing her name casually spoken by Roy, Shiki felt a bit surprised. Shiki is another alter ego that Shiki Ryougi possesses. It represents masculinity, denial, and the positive aspect and possessing the right to use her body.